Warrior Lore. Chapter 3880. The spectators in the Sagely Mountain City had yet to recover from their shock, even though Zichun had created another miracle. Not only had he received the recognition of the four mountains, but all of them had also reached the heaven rank. Apart from being unprecedented, it was likely that no one would be able to do so in the future. At that moment, everyone was shocked by the scene of Luo Tsong's attack. Some people had calculated that the power that Luo Tsong unleashed in that instant far exceeded the attack of the 100-soldiers' sword of clouds and rain. Zichen's shield was still intact, which was enough to prove that its ranking had increased. At the same time, many people felt that Zichun was too lucky. If he had hesitated for a moment, he would have died without a doubt. For a moment, the city was abuzz with discussion. On the third floor, the woman who had been standing in the same spot with lifeless eyes gradually regained her clarity after Luo Tsong had escaped. In the next moment, her appearance also changed, becoming petite and cute. If Zichun was here, he would definitely recognize this woman. She was the service staff that he had seen at the Undrunk restaurant. However, for some reason, she had changed her appearance and was standing beside Luo Tsong. She tried hard to recall what had happened before. Her pretty face changed little by little until she recalled everything. Then, her face turned pale again, and her eyes were filled with fear. If it wasn't for Zichun, she would have been finished. The image still did not disappear. Many people saw this scene and were all puzzled. Only a few people who recognized the woman's existence changed their expressions. Among them, an old man was so angry that his beard was blowing and his eyes were glaring. That damned guy. How dare he have designs on the Undrunk restaurant? Investigate this Luo Tsong and find out who he is. Also, bring him back here. Behind the old man, a black shadow disappeared into thin air. The terrified woman looked back at the passage behind her and at the same time, felt extremely lucky. After a slight hesitation, she turned and entered the fourth floor. She was very relaxed, which showed that she had great potential. Upon entering the fourth floor, she saw Zichun and the other two. The three of them also sensed something and immediately turned around. When they saw the woman, they were all very surprised. Who would have thought that the fourth person to come up would be a girl? The next moment, Zichun recognized the other party. Shanya and Lan Guming also recognized the other party, and a strange look appeared in their eyes. How could a service member of the Undrunk restaurant come to the fourth floor? However, the three of them did not pay too much attention to it. After nodding slightly at the other party, they continued to turn around and search for their own opportunities. In front of Zichun, there were more than 10 balls of light floating in front of him. Each one of them recorded a spell. Looking at these holy spirit arts, he was dazzled and didn't know what to choose. On the other hand, Shanya and Lan Guming did not have to worry about it. Both of them only had one Saint Spirit technique each, so it was easy for them to choose. Zichun stood in front of the light, hesitating. Judging from the surface, it was impossible to distinguish between good and bad. It seemed like he could only choose one at random. Furthermore, he didn't dare to use his soul force to casually investigate. What if it directly recognized him as its master? After coming here and walking such a long way, Zichun certainly did not want to miss out on this opportunity. He stood there, hesitating and hesitating. Lan Guming and Shanya had already made their only choice. It was obvious that the two of them were very satisfied with their gains. You don't know what to choose? Lan Guming walked in front of Zichun and also looked at the light balls. However, she had already lost the right to choose. Zichun nodded. These light balls were all the same size. At present, he could only judge them by their color. However, the colors were gold, black, and the color of flames. There was no unique feature at all. Shanya knew Zichun's purpose, so when she came to Zichun's side, she did the same as Lan Guming. She did not give any opinion to Zichun. The woman from the Undrunk restaurant looked back. She noticed that Zichun was in a difficult position. After a slight hesitation, she decided to help him. Hey! The three of them immediately turned around and looked at the woman who spoke. If you don't know what to choose, try to use the cultivation method. Choose the one you want the most. The woman from the Undrunk restaurant suggested. Zichun's eyes lit up. How could he forget this point? Zichun smiled at her gratefully. When he turned to look at the light balls again, he had an idea in his mind. He took a deep breath and began to use the ghost-devouring soul technique. His pure soul power surged out. What Zichen wanted the most right now was, of course, the second part of the ghost-devouring soul technique. Unfortunately, after the soul power surged out, the light balls in front of him did not change at all. Zichen was stunned. He was unwilling to give up. He continued to try, but there was still no reaction. The expected thing happened. There was no follow-up to the cultivation method here. Zichen's face was full of disappointment. Then, he shook his head. Looking at Zichen's action, Shanya felt a little sad for him. However, deep in her heart, she was actually a little happy. This was very contradictory. Zichen tried a few more times. The light balls in front of him still did not have any reaction. This made him completely disappointed. The second part of the ghost-devouring soul technique was indeed not here. However, which one should he choose now? Subconsciously, the power flowing on the surface of Zichen's body changed. This time, it became the power of the tremor fighting technique. Just as this power appeared, the quiet light balls in front of him suddenly began to tremble. Not one, but all of them. This made Zichen stunned. Even Shanya and Lan Guming were slightly stunned. They all sensed it. Could these techniques be of great use to Zichen? The power of the tremor fighting technique flowed out unconsciously. After noticing the abnormal changes in front of him, Zichen used the tremor fighting technique with all his strength, causing more tremor fighting power to appear on the surface of his body. The dozens of light balls in front of him began to tremble violently. They seemed to want to come to Zichen's side, but there seemed to be a strange force in the dark, preventing them from moving forward. Just as Zichen was wondering if he should choose one randomly, ripples suddenly appeared in the space in front of him. In the center of the ripples, a passage appeared. In the passage, there was a pitch-black light ball. When this light ball appeared, the surrounding light balls that had sensed it stopped trembling and returned to normal. Zichen had a strong feeling in his heart. The technique in the black light ball was of the same origin as the tremor fighting technique. In the next moment, he made a decision in his heart. This is it. When the elders in the Sagely Mountain City saw this scene, they were shocked. On the Holy Soul Mountain, Shang Rao was so angry that he stomped his feet. Chapter 3881. According to Shang Rao's plan, Shang Luan was going to fight Zichen on the Saint Soul Mountain. After killing Zichen, he would take away the most powerful combat technique in front of everyone's eyes. Unexpectedly, the battle between the two broke out prematurely, and Shang Luan, who had the 100 Weapons Cloud and Rain Sword, was defeated. The most powerful technique that should have belonged to Shang Luan was also taken away by Zichen. All of his plans had come to naught. This time, he was defeated by Zichen. It could be said that his loss was extremely heavy. Looking at the dark ball of light that was flying towards Zichen, Shang Rao wanted to rush forward and take it all away. This was because it was a technique that he had always wanted, but had never been able to obtain. Phew! Oli finally breathed a sigh of relief. His goal was accomplished, and he had no more regrets. Beside him, Wu Yid exclaimed, "Amazing, amazing!" At this point, the test was over. The black ball of light entered Zichen's sea of consciousness, and a message emerged. The power of the Death God. The most powerful force in combat techniques, the power of the Death God. Now was not the time to meditate. After the ball of light entered his sea of consciousness, Zichen turned around. At this moment, the woman from the Undrunk Tower also made her choice. A passage appeared in front of them. Zichen looked at the woman and said, "Let's go together?" The woman nodded, and the four of them stepped out of the passage one after another. This time, they did not come to the peak of the Saint Soul Mountain, but to an open space that looked like a square. There were only the four of them here. "Not bad. Your performance is very good." A laugh came from the side. When the four of them turned their heads, they saw Shang Rao. He was the person in charge of this test, and his face was full of smiles. The four of them cupped their fists and saluted. The necessary etiquette was still necessary. Especially you, Zichen. Not only did you get the recognition of the four mountains, but you also reached the peak of all four mountains. Your situation has never happened before, and I don't think it will happen again in the future. Shang Rao came in front of Zichen, patted him on the shoulder, and said with an encouraging smile, "The Saint Soul Mountain needs an elder like you to protect it. Only then can it last for a long time." "Senior, you flatter me." Zichun cupped his fists again and said politely, "Next, the Mountain Master will personally appear and give you the Elder's token. Just wait for a moment." The sacred radius came and went quickly. The person who appeared in front of Zichun was the Mountain Lord of St. Talisman Mountain. He was the only one here. The other 3 mountain lords were nowhere to be seen. At this time, the place where Zichun was standing seemed to have been isolated into a small space, and the others had disappeared. Amazing, truly amazing. The Mountain Lord of St. Talisman looked at Zichun and sighed. Zichun scratched his head and said nothing. "According to the rules of the sacred mountain, you must leave behind a drop of essence blood before you leave," the Hill Master said. "During this period, you can choose to live on the sacred mountain or in the sacred mountain city." Zichun thought for a moment and said, "Let's go to Sagely Mountain City. I should be staying here for a few more days." "Then you can go back first. Our people will contact you later." In this place, the Mountain Lord did not say much and left directly. After the Mountain Lord left, Shanya and Lan Gumeng appeared again. The 2 of them also met a person each, but like Zichun, they did not leave behind any essence blood. The 3 of them began to turn back. During this time, Zichun deliberately paid attention to the surroundings to see if he could meet any acquaintances. He did not find anyone until they returned to the inn. After asking the innkeeper, he was told that only the 3 of them had returned. The others had not returned yet. The next step was to wait. After a few hours, the few of them returned one after another. In this trial, the one who stayed the longest was Zichun. It took a long time to go to the 4 mountains one after another. Everyone returned safely, which was naturally a joyous occasion. Needless to say, Zichun's achievements were seen by everyone. Noah had entered the 3rd level of the Sacred Beast Mountain. Next, he needed to abide by the agreement of the Sacred Beast Mountain and stay in the Sacred Beast Mountain for 100 years to serve it. Lan Hongyi and Lan Rue also reached the 3rd level respectively. This was already an amazing potential. As for Pangchong, although he did not gain anything in the Sacred Beast Mountain, he also made a lot of money by betting on Zichun this time. However, this reunion also meant that they would have to part soon. Noah only had 3 days, after which he would enter the Holy Mountain. "Let's go to the Undrunk restaurant. Today, we will not go back until we are drunk," Zichun suggested. Before entering, he also bet heavily on himself. Although it was not much, he still made a lot of money. The few of them left the inn and headed to the Undrunk restaurant. The business of the Undrunk restaurant was still booming. After Zichun and the others entered, everyone in the hall on the 1st floor cast their eyes on them. The previous discussions about Zichun had already stopped abruptly. Immediately, a service staff came to greet them. The current Zichun was really well known. Looking at the full 1st floor, Zichun asked worriedly, "Are there any seats left?" "Yes, please come with me." The smile on the service staff's face did not fade as he politely gestured for Zichun to enter the 2nd floor. "Hey, did you make a mistake? Didn't you say there were no seats when I asked earlier?" At this moment, a young man asked unhappily, "Sorry, Lord Zichun is our distinguished guest. His dining area is not on the 2nd floor, but on the 3rd. As soon as this was said, many diners who were familiar with the rules of the Undrunk restaurant changed their expressions. The 3rd floor of the Undrunk restaurant in the Sacred Beast Mountain City was not open to the public. Only the distinguished guests of the Undrunk restaurant were qualified to enter the 3rd floor. Such distinguished guests must be people of high status. According to Zichun's current realm and achievements, he did not seem to be a distinguished guest. Zichun was not sure about this. Since there were seats, it was naturally a good thing. After going up to the 3rd floor, Zichun found that there was only one room. The room was very luxuriously decorated and was several levels higher than the 2nd floor. "Did you make a mistake?" Lan Rue knew that this place was unusual, so he asked. "Don't worry, sirs. This was specially instructed by the manager. There can't be a mistake." After saying that, the service staff left politely. "Order whatever you want to eat today. I'll pay for all the expenses." A familiar female voice came from behind. A petite and cute girl walked in from the door. "It's you." Zichun recognized her. It was the girl who had warned him before. He was a little surprised and hurriedly said, "Thank you for what you did before. I should be the one saying that. Thank you for saving me. Today's meal is my thanks to you." The girl came in front of Zichun and made a salute. "Jiu, thanks young Master Zichun for saving me." Zichun was a little confused. Chapter 3882. Shijio's sudden thanks made Zichun very puzzled. He looked at her and said, "Did you get the wrong person?" "Get the wrong person, my ass. She's already called out your name. How could I get it wrong?" Oli walked in from outside. He first went to the inn, but he didn't see Zichun, so he came here. It wasn't difficult to find Zichun now. Along the way, many people were talking about seeing Zichun in person. "Little girl, I'll accept your thanks on behalf of Zichun. Serve the good wine and dishes." Oli looked at Shijio and said, "Okay." Shijio nodded immediately, a smile on her face, and then went to arrange everything. After Shijio left, Zichun looked at Oli, waiting for him to explain. "You're also a pig. Can't you just say you're welcome?" Oli scolded Zichun, then explained the reason for saving Zichun. Zichun's expression couldn't help but change. No wonder the woman with the dull eyes looked familiar. So that's why. In that case, that Luozong obviously had some ulterior motives for Shijio. Then what about Shijio's identity? Zichun's expression changed slightly as he looked at Oli. Oli nodded, indicating that he guessed right. Since Shijio's identity wasn't low, why did she serve them food and wine last time? In the next moment, Zichun thought of something. Last time when they were drinking here, Oli bragged that he was the young master of the Sacred Mountain Gambling House. At that time, he said that he was the young master of the Undrunk Restaurant. At that time, Oli said that the Undrunk Restaurant didn't have a young master, only a young lady, and his answer at that time was offensive. Coincidentally, Shiju was next to him at that time. Thinking of this small episode, Zichun's expression couldn't help but change, and his face turned slightly red. It seemed that she heard what he said. Fortunately, the others didn't pay attention to Zichun, but curiously looked at the decorations in the room. Since the Undrunk brothel had opened its doors to welcome guests, it naturally wouldn't refuse a guest, even if the guest was very annoying. After Fong Wulian was defeated, he came to the Undrunk brothel. Even though the manager hated him, he couldn't chase him out. Even if the restaurant was full, there would still be people who would take the initiative to give up their seats for him. After all, he was the second young master of the Fong clan. Even if he didn't have any strength and had a terrible reputation, he was still extremely wealthy, so everyone had to give him some face. Shan Kuei pushed open the door and happened to see Fong Wulian hugging two beautiful women. At this moment, the two of them took turns pouring wine into Fong Wulian's mouth. Fong Wulian smiled and said, "Although drunken immortal is good, drinking like this is boring. Come, use your mouth to feed young master." "Young master, you're so bad." The two women in his arms smiled shyly. Shan Kuei coughed softly and said in a low voice, "Young master, Zichun is back and he came to the Undrunk Inn. He sure knows how to enjoy himself." Fong Wulian snorted and said, "Let's go and meet him." He waved his hand, and the two women stood up from his arms. Shan Kuei said, "But he's now on the third floor." "The third floor?" Fong Wulian was startled. "Where is he qualified to go?" Shan Kuei said, "I don't know, but he's indeed on the third floor." Fong Wulian, who had just stood up, sat down again. "That place isn't for everyone. Forget it. I'll find him another day. Come, let's continue drinking." "Shan Kuei, you should also drink." Shan Kuei shook his head and said no, then turned and left. Although he was used to such a scene, he knew that he wasn't suitable for such an atmosphere. This time, it was still Xiao, who personally brought the wine for Zichun. It was the superior undrunk immortal. Zichun knew the reason and didn't say anything more. After all, the other party was a girl, and her reputation was very important. Under Oli's invitation, Xiao sat down without hesitation. After seeing Oli's signal, Zichun had to stand up and introduce these friends to Xiao one by one. After introducing Noah and Pang Chong, Xiao took the initiative to say, "Next, I know that he is Lan Rui, and this sister is Lan Hongyi." Sister Shanya, who was recognized by the two mountains and entered the fourth floor. Sister Lan Gu Ming, who was recognized by the three mountains, And you, Zichun, this is the first time I've met you, so I'll drink first as a sign of respect. Xiao picked up a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. Oli said, good. Following that, the atmosphere became much more lively. In another room, Wu Yud was drinking tea with an old man. He came with young Master Oli, but he didn't go in. Did you get anything out of the old man? The room was filled with the fragrance of tea. Wu Yud put down the teacup. What? The old man looked up at Wu Yud. There was confusion in those turbid eyes. Wu Yud picked up the teacup again. Although he had been with Oli these days and seemed to have nothing to do, he knew all the news. Luo Tsong, who had appeared out of nowhere, almost overturned the situation of the sacred mountain gambling house last time. This time, he had suddenly made a move and almost killed Zichun. Moreover, the other party could silently avoid the detection of the mirror spirit and capture the daughter of the undrunk brothel. Obviously, he wasn't an extraordinary person. However, after the other party came out, he seemed to have disappeared from the world. No matter how hard the sacred mountain gambling house searched, they couldn't find him. Wu Yud guessed that the other party had been captured by this very benevolent-looking old man. The old man had captured Luo Tsong to vent his anger, but the sacred mountain gambling house wanted to get some very important information from him. However, the old man in front of him was obviously unwilling to cooperate. After thinking for a while, Wu Yud put down the teacup again. He didn't want to talk in riddles, so he said, we have a secret method. Maybe we can get something out of him. The old man said, the other party came prepared. My men couldn't find him. Wu Yud's expression couldn't help but change. The sacred mountain gambling house couldn't be found, and the old man couldn't catch the other party either. It was obvious that Luo Tsong was well prepared, and to be able to do this, it was enough to show that the other party had the shadow of the sacred mountain behind him. Only with the help of the sacred mountain could the other party disappear without a trace. The old man looked at Wu Yud's changing expression and said, your sacred mountain is really too chaotic. Wu Yud fell silent. For the next half of the day, he had been drinking tea and didn't say a word. The old man seemed to treat Wu Yud as if he didn't exist, occasionally teasing the spirit bird in the cage next to him. And in his mind, his previous conversation with little Ju appeared. Girl, you have to try to take charge of things on your own. After such an uncontrollable thing had happened, the old man knew that he couldn't protect little Jo behind him forever. She needed to spread her wings, take charge of things on her own, and take over the entire Sea family. Zichun ate this meal to his heart's content, and he also made a friend in little Ju. After the group returned to the inn, Zichun saw the Shishan brothers. The two of them had been sitting on the first floor of the inn, obviously waiting for him for a long time. After seeing Zichun, the two brothers immediately stood up, looking very excited. Chapter 3883. Zichun shook his head and dispersed the smell of alcohol on his body. Come with me. The others returned to their rooms. The Shishan brothers followed Zichun to his residence. The two brothers were very excited. They had made a lot of money betting on Zichun this time. Now that Zichun's fame was like the sun in the sky, everyone knew about him, while the two brothers had become famous in the gambling world. This had caused their status to rise. Even the incident of them gambling their lives to borrow blue crystal coins when they came to the Sagely Mountain City had become a legend. After entering the room, Shishan's brother immediately took out a glowing pouch. It was similar to a storage pouch. Inside it was half of their winnings. This was because Shishan's brother had said that they would split everything. Please accept it, sir. Shishan's brother said respectfully. He was willing to give it. Zichun glanced at the pouch, but did not take it immediately. Instead, he asked, when do you plan to leave the Sagely Mountain City? We should stay for a few more days. Shishan's brother did not understand why Zichun would ask such a question, but he still answered after giving it some serious thought. Zichun continued, what do you plan to do next? Do you still want to be a bandit? The two brothers were a little embarrassed. Shishan's brother quickly shook his head and said, no, we won't do that again. Zichun nodded and said, in that case, why don't you do something for me? Sir, please tell us what you need. The two brothers said in unison. Zichun said, from now on, you two will follow Pang Chong and protect him for 100 years. Protect Pang Chong for 100 years? The two brothers were stunned. This was too unexpected. They had thought that Zichun would arrange for them to do something big. They did not expect it to be such a small matter. Looking at the two brothers who were slightly stunned, Zichun asked, "Can you do it?" "Yes, of course. Not to mention 100 years. Even 500 years won't be a problem." Shishan's brother patted his chest and said, "This time, it was all because of Zichun that they were able to turn their luck around. Moreover, the rewards they had obtained were enough for them to change their guns for cannons and redecorate themselves. A full set of good equipment could greatly increase everyone's combat strength." Brother Shishan also nodded, indicating that this was not a problem. "That's it then. You can take these things back," Zichun said, waving his hand. "Sir, this is our—" Before Brother Shishan could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Zichun. "Use them well. Follow Peng Chong. See more, learn more. I believe that you are not bad people. You don't lack resources now, so I hope you can do something useful. All right, I'm going to rest." The two brothers looked at each other in dismay. Clearly, they did not expect this to happen. Zichun urged them again, and the two had no choice but to leave. They would remember this kindness in their hearts. That night, Zichun told Peng Chong about this matter. Naturally, Peng Chong had no objections. The combat strength of the two brothers was not weak. If they could really wholeheartedly do good, it would naturally be extremely good. The next day, Peng Chong and the Shishan brothers left. Zichun did not see the three of them off. Clearly, he did not want them to attract too much attention. Before leaving, Zichun repeatedly reminded the three of them to be careful on the road. Another 2 days passed. Noah also had to leave for the sacred mountain. It was time to say goodbye, and this time, they did not know when they would meet again. Lan Hongyi, who was also about to leave, looked at Zichun and said, "Send me off." Zichun nodded and walked forward. The others tactfully stayed behind. Lan Rue did not need to go to the sacred mountain. Lan Hongyi did not need to go either. The elders of the Lan family had already informed the sacred mountain, but Lan Hongyi insisted on staying. After leaving the inn, the two walked along the road in silence. There was constant laughter all around. Along the way, many people pointed at Zichun and whispered when they saw him. "This time, I will stay in the sacred mountain for 100 years. Lan Hongyi broke the silence. "I will go north," Zichun said. "Is there no destination?" Lan Hongyi asked. Zichun shook his head and sighed. "I will send little Mute to the place, or I will find what I want. Apart from these two things, I should not stop." "Then after 100 years, won't you have come a long way?" Lan Hongyi looked to the north. The world was so big that she could not see the end. Maybe. In fact, it was also possible that he would leave, because Zichun felt that he had stayed in this world for too long. What followed was silence until the two reached the city gate. "Let's go. I wish you a safe journey." Walking out of the city, Lan Hongyi walked forward freely, waving at Zichun without looking back. "Goodbye." Zichun waved goodbye. But after a few steps, Lan Hongyi suddenly turned around and ran towards Zichun. Zichun's hand was still hanging in the air when his body was embraced by Lan Hongyi. A touch of warmth and softness came. Zichun was stunned on the spot as if he was electrocuted. About 3 breaths later, he slowly put down his hand and prepared to give Lan Hongyi a hug. But at this moment, Lan Hongyi had already broken free from Zichun's embrace. She looked at Zichun and mocked. "What? You want to take advantage of me? Dream on." Zichun stood there awkwardly. "So what if you create a miracle and gain the recognition of the 4 mountains? So what if you leave your name in history? I still don't like you." Lan Hongyi turned and left without looking back. "If you want to woo me, wait another 100 years. This time, Lan Hongyi did not look back. After walking more than 100 feet, her eyes turned red and tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Zichun stood there and stared at Lan Hongyi's back until her slender figure disappeared from his field of vision. He turned and went back, feeling a little emotional. After returning to the inn, Lan Rue told them that he was leaving and gestured for the 3 to take care. Since the last time he left the Lan family, this was the furthest Lan Rue, the future heir, could go. As the future heir of the Lan family, Lan Rue had his own mission. It was impossible for him to accompany Zichun around the world. The group of people sent Lan Rue out of the inn. Lan Rui waved goodbye to everyone. Zichun, I'll be counting on you from now on. Zichun nodded and understood what Lan Rui meant. His friends left one after another. Even Zichun was a little depressed at this moment. It seems that you're in a bad mood. Do you want me to treat you to a meal? A voice came from the side. It was Xiao'er, the daughter of the undrunk restaurant. When she arrived, she saw Lan Rui leaving, so she waved at him. Why are you here? Zichun looked back at her. I'm here to chat with a few sisters. It seems that I came at a bad time. I should have come earlier. Xiao'er said, if you're sad, I can treat you to a drink. What's the point of drinking with you? Chapter 3884. The voice was discordant and ear-piercing. Zichun did not even need to turn around to know who it was. Lan Guming and Shanya, who were already in a bad mood, immediately stared coldly at the newcomer. The newcomer was Fang Wulian. His defensive robe was destroyed by Zichun last time. He suffered a great loss and became the laughing stock of the world once again. Fang Wulian, just like his name. Shan Kuei followed beside him. He, who was originally behind them, felt the murderous intent from the two girls and immediately walked to the front. Fang Wulian waved his hand, indicating that Shan Kuei should not be bothered. Who are you? Shijio stared at Fang Wulian with an unfriendly gaze. Second young master of the Fang family. Fang Wulian laughed and raised his head proudly. You're that faceless? Shijio was very surprised. She did not expect to see this second-generation heir with her own eyes. However, she quickly reacted and retreated with a look of disgust. It was as if the other party was something bad and would affect her if he got too close. Little beauty, you don't have to be so close to me. You're not my wife. Fang Wulian chuckled and looked at Shijio from head to toe. But you have a good figure. I'm still lacking a girl to warm my bed. I wonder if you're interested? Bah, why don't you go and die? When was I close to you? I said that you have no face. Fang Wumian, Shijio said with a look of disgust. Little beauty, if you're willing to warm my bed, I don't care about my face. How about it? Think about it? Who knows, I might even reward you with a magic robe if I'm happy, Fang Wulian said with a smile. Bah, I'm not interested, Shiju said with disdain. However, her face was red with anger. Seeing that Fang Wulian was about to say something, Lan Guming said coldly, either get lost or die. Choose one. During this time, Zichun kept looking at Fang Wulian. He already knew the other party's name. Lan Rui had told him about the other party's background. At that time, Lan Rui had hinted to Zichun to be careful of Fang Wulian's revenge. This was also the first time Zichun learned about the forces outside the Sacred Mountain. He learned about the Fang clan's custom-made armor and unique magic spirit robes. What's the matter? Zichun finally spoke. I'm here to discuss a big business deal with you. Are you interested? Fang Wulian said with a smile. Not interested. Zichun refused directly. Shijio snorted proudly. Forget it if you're not interested. Fang Wulian was a little disappointed. He continued, I happen to have time today. Why don't you treat me to a meal? Are we going to the undrunk brothel? Shiju sneered. You're just a rich second generation, and you want Zichun to treat you to a meal? Even if you do, he won't go. Lan Guming and Shanya looked at Fang Wulian as if they were looking at an idiot. Unexpectedly, Zichun did not immediately refuse. Instead, he thought for a while and said, okay. Hearing this word, the three women seemed to have an auditory hallucination. They turned their heads and looked at Zichun in surprise, especially his eyes. They all wanted to see if Zichun was under the other party's illusion. Zichun's eyes were clear. Naturally, it was impossible for him to be under any illusion. At the same level, no one could affect Zichun's soul. Fang Wulian laughed and said, there's no time like the present. How about now? Beauties, come with me? The three women still looked at Zichun. They felt extremely incredulous. Why did Zichun think so highly of this shameless guy? I can go alone. Looking at the expressions of the three people, it was obvious that they were not willing to deal with Fang Wulian, so Zichun gave up the invitation. Three beauties, goodbye then? Fang Wulian waved at the three people with a look that was asking for a beating. Shan Kuei signaled his young master to leave quickly. These three women's tempers were not so good. They might really fight. Seeing Zichun leave, Jie said angrily, I didn't expect Zichun to be such a person. Come, let's go and eat. So, the three women walked towards the undrunk restaurant at the same time, but they kept a distance from Zichun and the others. It was still early, so there were not many guests in the undrunk restaurant. The three went to the second floor together and asked for a private room. After ordering a few dishes, the atmosphere became silent again. I really have a big deal to cooperate with you, Feng Wulian said. Not interested, Zichun said lightly. Actually, you should hear it, Feng Wulian said unwillingly. As long as it's done, I will tailor a set of armor for you. Its defensive strength will be stronger than Shan Kuei's last time. After learning about Feng Wulian from Lan Rue, Zichun also knew about the strength of the Feng family. It was a power that could be compared to the Yishan, and its depth was even stronger than the Lan family. Although the two powers were not in the same area, they would still cooperate with each other. Among them, many of the Lan family's armors were from the Feng family. As for the magic spiritual robes, although there were a few, their grades were very low. The Feng family had a rule that high-grade magic spiritual robes were never given to outsiders. Zichun shook his head and said, not interested. At this time, a woman walked in and took 3 jars of undrunk immortal. Before she left, she looked at Zichun with a strange gaze. Obviously, she was also very surprised. Why would the famous Zichun be with the infamous Feng Wulian? Feng Wulian took the initiative to help Zichun open the seal. He seemed very attentive. Just treat it as doing me a favor. It's like this. In order to show the fairness of their search for a successor, my family has decided to open a trial. They have placed the Feng family's top refining skills in the ancestral land. Whoever obtains it will be the future successor. Zichun took the wine jar and said bluntly, what does this have to do with me? I didn't say the second half. Feng Wulian continued, because the ancestral land is full of danger. It's very dangerous for a person to enter alone. Therefore, the family allows for external help. Zichun, if you can help me become the successor, I will tailor a set of armor for you for free. Together with your combat skills, it can increase your combat strength by several times, or even 10 times. I don't have that ability. Go find someone else. At this time, another person came in with a few exquisite dishes. The conversation between the two temporarily stopped. After the other party left, Feng Wulian immediately said, you have to help me. How about this? I will give you a magic spiritual robe after it's done. How about a high-grade magic spiritual robe that is not given to outsiders? Zichun shook his head again and said, I really don't have that ability. Go find someone else. Feng Wulian smiled bitterly and said, I want to find someone, but there needs to be someone suitable. Originally, Sheng Luan and Yu Yi were the people I was looking for, but you crippled them, so I can only find you. Crippled? Zichun looked at Feng Wulian. He didn't cripple them, he killed them. Chapter 3885. Still alive? Are you sure? Zichun's expression changed. He did not hold back at that time, so he was sure that the two of them were dead. With the existence of the mirror spirit, as long as their family takes care of them, they usually won't die in the sacred mountain trials. This has become common knowledge. Of course, most people would never know about this. Feng Wulian pointed at himself and said, take me for example. I didn't participate in the first and second trials, but didn't I still go to the sacred soul mountain? Zichun was very surprised that the two of them were still alive. At the same time, he had a new impression of Saint. There were rules everywhere, but there were exceptions everywhere. You've helped me this time. After this, I'll definitely give you a high-grade magic spirit robe. Feng Wulian said again. Even though she had eliminated a lot of food and felt much better, Xiao was still in a bad mood when she returned to the undrunk restaurant after bidding farewell to her two sisters. She went straight to the old man's place and pushed the door open. When she saw the old man drinking tea and playing with his bird, she was even angrier. You've got the wrong person, she said directly, her tone very unpleasant. The old man looked up at Xiao and asked with a smile, oh, who did I get the wrong person? Zichun. He's not as good as you think. He's no different from other people. He's a very vulgar person. Xiao pouted and said angrily, tell me about it. The old man was clearly interested. Today, Fong Wumian went to look for him. After knowing that he was the second young master of the Fong family, his expression immediately changed. When Fong Wumian asked for a meal, he was very willing to treat him to a meal. Xiao said angrily, in order to curry favor with a second generation like Fong Wumian, he didn't even have the necessary dignity. Tell me, what's the point of roping in such a person? Really? The old man was surprised. What else? Even Lan Guming and Sister Shan you can't stand Zichen's behavior. Xiao said, so, you've got the wrong person this time. The old man did not refute Xiao. Instead, he nodded and said, perhaps this time, I've really made a mistake. Humph. Xiao snorted in dissatisfaction. The old man continued, however, he didn't misjudge Zichun. He misjudged the second young master of the Fong family. This second generation with an extremely bad reputation might not be as bad as the rumors say. Have you gone senile? How can you say something like that? Shiju said, didn't you say yesterday that you really wanted to slap to death that second generation who was running amok in the undrunk restaurant? The old man shook his head and said, do you know who Zichen met before he met Luozong? That spoiled brat? This news has already spread. He recklessly went to provoke Zichun and directly lost a set of battle armor and a magic robe. This matter was discussed every day in the Sagely Mountain City. At the same time, it was one of the ironclad evidence of Fong Wulian's absurd actions. Many people who had only heard of his name but had never seen him in person could not help but praise him after seeing this scene. The rumors were indeed accurate. The old man recalled the scene and said, at that time, Zichun had already defeated Sheng Luan and had 200 weapons on him. When he first met Fong Wulian, he did not put him in his eyes. When Shan Kuei made his move, Zichun had only displayed his full strength bit by bit. When Fong Wulian made his move, he had used his full strength. At that time, the defeated Fong Wulian not only did not feel afraid, but also continued to provoke Zichun, who had just spared his life. But guess what happened? Shijio shook her head, indicating that she did not know. At that time, she was under Luozong's control. Zichun ignored his provocation and went directly to the third floor. However, he met Luozong there. At the moment Luozong attacked, Zichun used his full strength. The old man said, in other words, when Luozong was about to attack, Zichun had already used his full strength. It was also because of this that he was able to block Luozong's powerful and murderous attack and save his life. The old man also remembered what Fong Wulian had said to Zichun. At first, he thought it was a provocation, but looking at it in reverse, wasn't it also a warning? In other words, Fong Wulian's appearance was to warn Zichun to be careful. He even did not hesitate to lose his magic robe, and Zichun obviously understood, so he avoided the disaster on the third floor. If this was really the case, then it made sense that Zichun had taken the initiative to treat them today. After all, Fong Wulian had indirectly saved his life. But how could an extremely unbearable spoiled brat in the rumors have such wisdom? Fong Wulian left the undrunk restaurant and walked toward the inn where he lived. Shan Kuei followed behind Fong Wulian and was always one step behind him. Listening to the conversation between the young master and Zichun, he had a lot of doubts in his heart. Back at the inn, Shan Kuei watched as his young master greeted the girls and pinched them left and right. When they returned to their room, Shan Kuei finally couldn't help but ask, since you've decided, why don't everyone walk together? Fong Wulian leaned back on the recliner and stretched comfortably. He glanced at Shan Kuei. He would not have any doubts about this loyal guard. This time, it's a matter of great importance. We absolutely can't pin our hopes on one person. Moreover, Zichen's current troubles are not smaller than ours. If we go all the way, maybe someone will kill us as well. This time, going alone can be considered a test for him. If he can't reach Fong Lin City alive, what qualifications and strength does he have to lead me to snatch the identity of the successor? Then when do we leave? Shan Kuei asked again. Let's wait first. Find me a few more powerful existences. I'll go see them and try to win them over. I've missed too many opportunities. This is my last chance. I can't miss it. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Zichun returned to the inn. This time, he agreed to help Fong Wulian. In addition to the attractive rewards, Zichen also wanted to return the favor. If he had been careless last time, he would have died long ago. Maybe Lan Guming and Shanya would not have survived. This was a favor, and he had to return it. Walking into the Lan family's inn, the innkeeper told Zichen that someone was looking for him. Zichen found that the innkeeper's face had a difficult expression. "Who's looking for me?" Zichen asked, puzzled. "People from the Holy Mountain, but they've already gone to your residence." The innkeeper said embarrassedly, "We tried to stop them, but we couldn't." Now that he thought about that person, the innkeeper still couldn't remember what he looked like. He clearly remembered that person. Zichen waved his hand. Obviously, he didn't care. He always kept his valuable things with him. Opening the door, Zichen saw an old man sitting next to him. It was the mountain lord of the Holy Talisman Mountain. Zichen was very surprised and hurriedly bowed. Chapter 3886. The old man's arrival surprised Zichen, but it was within reason because he had obtained many benefits on the sacred mountain. It was time for him to fulfill his responsibilities. Zichen was already prepared, but who knew that the old man would speak at this time? "Where did your unpredictability come from?" Unpredictability? Zichen was startled. "An elder bestowed it upon me." The old man's expression changed. He asked again, "What elder?" Zichen told the old man how he had obtained the unpredictability. After learning all this, the old man's face was clearly dejected. "Did something happen?" Zichen asked. The old man shook his head. "No, but we all want to know how the previous mountain lord left this world. Because we were all trapped in this world and couldn't find a way out for many years." It was a short sentence, but it contained an extremely important message. Zichen had guessed that the missing hall master had come to this world before, but he did not expect him to be the mountain master of the St. Talisman Mountain. The other news was even more shocking. The descenders who came here couldn't return. This world only has an entrance and no exit. Or rather, we haven't found where the exit is for the time being. The old man said, "We couldn't find it for a long time until I saw your unpredictability. Only then was I certain that the temple lord had left." Zichen's expression began to change. He didn't expect that the descenders of this world would face such a situation. As for whether they will leave this world after death and return to their original world, no one knows. The old man asked Zichen if he had any other clues. Zichen knew nothing other than the unpredictability. "The entrance was open because of you, so maybe you have a way to leave." The old man said, "The previous mountain lord didn't leave his essence blood on the sacred mountain. Originally, with my authority, I could make an exception. But this time, you climbed the 4 mountains and reached the peak one by one. You must have obtained many opportunities, so the difficulty is extremely high. However, you have other sage opportunities. If you are willing, you can take them out as compensation." Zichen didn't immediately reply. Instead, he asked, "Is this very important?" The old man said, "I don't know either. Maybe the chances of leaving this way will be higher." "All right then, I'll use this opportunity to enter the Saint Realm in exchange for not leaving behind any blood essence." Zichen nodded. The opportunity that Oli had given him was gone, but he had gained his freedom. This was actually a good thing for Zichen, because he had gained a lot of benefits from this trip to the Sacred Mountain. If he went to the Sage Domain to take the opportunity again, he might incur the wrath of the crowd. Zichen was actually very happy to use this opportunity to exchange for his freedom. It was just that Oli felt a little apologetic. "What plans do you have for the future?" the mountain chieftain asked Zichen. "I'll go north," Zichen said. "It's a good place for you to train." The mountain master smiled. Zichen asked, "May I ask, mountain chieftain, what exactly is there in the north?" The mountain master smiled and said, "There are opportunities, dangers, and heavenly souls." Zichen was a little confused. In this world, more than 90% of heavenly souls are in the north, the mountain master said. The mountain master said, "I don't know when it started, but there was a rule in this world that all heavenly souls have to go to the north." There was a look of yearning in the old man's eyes. "But I'm not sure what's there in the north. Could the passage to leave be in the north?" Zichen asked. "You'll have to go and take a look. Once you find the passage, remember to come back and inform us." Zichen nodded. The road ahead is full of danger. Be careful. Take these 3 holy talismans. In times of danger, you can use them to save your life. The old man took out the 3 holy talismans. The talismans were dim, and all their power was restrained. Even Zichun couldn't sense the strength of the talismans. However, the talismans given by the mountain chieftain were definitely not ordinary talismans. Zichun thanked him and took them with both hands. He walked the old man out of the room. The old man rejected Zichun's good intentions to walk him out. Obviously, he didn't want others to know that he had come here personally. Back in the room, Zichun began to think about the next arrangements. There was a knock on the door. Lan Guming and Shanya were outside. After the 2 of them came in, Zichun said, "You came at the right time. We have to leave." "Where to?" Lan Guming asked. "We'll go to Fonglan City first," Zichun said. Fonglan City? The Fong family's power? When the 2 of them were eating with Shiju, she told them everything about the Fong family. Fonglan City was the Fong family's headquarters, so it was naturally the most important. Zichun nodded and said, "I promised Fong Wulian something. We have to go there first to complete it." Shania said, "In that case, Fong Wulian's appearance back then was intentional?" They had followed Zichun for a long time. Of course, they believed in Zichun's character. There was naturally a reason why he looked at Fong Wulian differently for no reason. But in front of Shiju, the 2 of them did not say anything. His reminder saved me, and the price he paid was not small. If it's converted into a favor, it is indeed not small. Zichun said, "So this time, I can't refuse his request." The 2 of them also nodded, indicating that they understood. Shanya said again, "Fong Wulian's reputation has always been bad, but he is so scheming and shrewd. Obviously, he is extremely tolerant, and his goal is definitely not small. It's better to be careful when working with such a person." Zichun also considered this point, but he seemed to have vaguely guessed the reason why Fong Wulian was tolerant. Sheng Luan and Yu Yi are still alive, and this time, they have suffered a great loss. Naturally, they will not give up, so when we leave this time, we must be careful. Zichun did not leave immediately. Instead, he stayed in the inn for 2 more days. During these 2 days, Shijio came every day. Of course, she did not come to find Zichun. On the 3rd day, Zichun's carriage left the Sagely Mountain City. 2 hours later, the 2nd carriage also left. 6 hours later, the 3rd carriage also left. All 3 carriages had coachmen. These were the 3 carriages that Zichun had come in. The city was still bustling with noise and excitement. No one knew that the protagonist of their conversation had quietly left. However, there were many forces in the Sagely Mountain City that had been paying close attention to Zichun. After each carriage left, some people would silently follow the carriage out of the city and then follow in the direction that the carriage had gone. Chapter 3887. Although Lan Rui had left the Sagely Mountain City in advance, Zichun still had the authority to use the Lan family's intelligence channels in the city. Therefore, he was very clear about how many people had followed the 3 carriages when they left one after the other. At this moment, Zichun hadn't left yet. He was staying in the undrunk brothel. The reason he was staying here was because Lan Guming and Shanya had said goodbye to Xiao. Worried that the 2 would encounter trouble and danger on the road, Xiao had suggested that they follow the undrunk brothel's caravan. The road ahead was bound to be dangerous, so Zichun didn't have the idea of being a man and immediately agreed. Zichun's expression became unsightly when he saw the Lan family's message. He originally thought that since he had offended Yu Yi and Sheng Luan, these 2 factions wouldn't let him go. He didn't expect that there would be so many factions targeting him. The new ranking of the Saint Weapon Mountain's 100 weapon ranking hasn't been announced yet. It should be related to the 3 of you. According to the information we've received, the 4 Saint Soul weapons on your bodies have caused a huge commotion. Your ranking won't be low. With such treasures on your bodies, there will naturally be many people targeting you. This was what Xiao had said. She had already contacted the caravan and would set off tomorrow morning. Zichun, who was reading the report, silently read the description and didn't give any response. From Xiao's point of view, it was as if he was ignoring her. She snorted and said, "I know that you descenders are all adept at scheming and scheming. In order to prove that I don't have any bad intentions, I will join the caravan with you this time. Zichen's gaze finally moved away from the report. He looked at Xiao and asked doubtfully, "You're coming too? What else?" Xiao mocked, "If I don't follow you, how can I guarantee that you won't kill our undrunk brothels people along the way and then hide your whereabouts and disappear?" Zichen naturally didn't care about Xiao words. She could help them at this time, which was absolutely timely. Oli had also said that the undrunk brothels people were trustworthy. However, what puzzled him the most was that Xiao, the only successor of the unintoxicated tower, would actually follow him. Then, why would the higher-ups of the unintoxicated tower agree? Other than opening a restaurant to sell drunken immortals, Undrunk Restaurant's power was outside of the sacred mountain. Perhaps their foundation was slightly weaker than the Fong clan, but their reputation was not weak at all. It was said that a huge accident had happened in the early years of the Undrunk brothel, so Shijio was the only heir left. She was definitely a treasure in the Undrunk brothel and was never shown to the public. This trip to the Holy Mountain was also Xiao's first time going out to train. She never thought that she would be targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Why did he dare to let Shijio go out this time? Furthermore, he was following them? One had to know that the reason Zichun trusted the No Drunken Tower was because of O Li's words and Old Tang's opinion. But why would Buzue Lu believe them? Seeing that Zichun was in a daze and didn't say anything, Xiao said again, "What? Did I hit the nail on the head?" Zichun came back to his senses and said, "If I say thank you at this time, will you stop following us?" "Follow? You said follow you?" Xiao said angrily, "Zichun, you have to understand that I'm protecting you. I'm willing to lower myself to protect you. It's fine if you're not grateful, but you're actually looking down on me, right?" "No, absolutely not." Zichun shook his head. Of course, he couldn't admit to this kind of thing. This little girl was too much of a troublemaker. Zichun cast a glance to the side. Shanya smiled and walked closer. She pulled Xiao hand and said, "Sister Xiao, do you really want to go with us?" Xiao nodded and said, "Sister, you're not happy?" "Of course I'm happy," Shanya said with a smile. She seemed to be really happy. Xiao glanced at Lan Guming again, and the other party also smiled and nodded. Xiao smiled sweetly and let go of Zichun. Zichun felt a headache. It seemed that this was true, but how could he be at ease with such a young lady on the road? Just as Zichun was staying in Undrunk Tavern, the forces outside the sacred mountain were already surging with undercurrents. After more than half a day, the 3 carriages were ambushed one after another. The people who attacked came quickly and retreated even faster. Naturally, they gained nothing. On the same day, Oli concealed his identity and changed his appearance to find a caravan to discuss a business deal. After staying in Undrunk Tavern for a day, Zichen and the other 3, who had also changed their appearances, came to the back door of Undrunk Tavern. After helping the caravan there unload some things, they left with the caravan. The old steward of Undrunk Tavern stood on the top floor and watched the caravan leave. He was still unwilling to look away until everyone's figures had disappeared. "Is this the right thing to do?" The old man sighed. "This is the only way for now." Behind the old man, a man in black said, but there was a hint of helplessness in his voice, "I hope everything is as Daoist Chen predicted." Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Zichun didn't rely on magic to change his appearance, but a small pendant on his waist. Shanya, Lan Guming, and Jiur wore jewelry that could change their appearance. The 4 of them became ordinary and followed the caravan forward. This was a private caravan of Undrunk Tavern. They went back and forth between Undrunk Taverns to provide materials. One of the most common things was Undrunk Immortal. Whether it was the Sacred Mountain City or other cities, there was no way to brew Undrunk Immortal. All the Undrunk Immortal sold had to be transported through the cities controlled by Undrunk Tavern. The leader of the caravan was a strong man. It was said that he was an old man in Undrunk Tavern and was deeply trusted. He didn't speak much along the way. Because he had to bring Zichun and the other 3 with him, the others in the caravan didn't know each other before. It was a team that was put together at the last minute. On the peak of the Sacred Soul Mountain, a bird landed in front of Sacred Ray. After reading the contents of the bird, his eyes instantly turned cold. Do you think you can escape by hiding in the caravan? Sacred Ray got up and walked down the sacred soul mountain. He left with a murderous intent. At the same time, on the other sacred mountains, there were also people leaving one after another. These people's target was Zichun. As the person involved, Zichun didn't know how many people were coming this time. He still stayed in the caravan. They didn't encounter any danger on the way. After 3 days, the ordinary-looking Zichun slowly became familiar with the people in the caravan. After 3 days, the caravan arrived at a plain area. It was said that they would have to walk on this road for another month. There were still 3 months before Zichun's destination, Fanglan City. Chapter 3888. Saint Rao stood on the plain. Not only did he not intend to hide his whereabouts, but he also deliberately released his own aura. This was to intimidate. Who dared to approach the sacred mountain? Behind him stood Sheng Luan, who had been defeated by Zichun last time. He should have died, but because of the mirror spirit, he paid a price and was still alive. Behind Sheng Luan, there were more than 10 people, all of whom were filled with murderous intent. Saint Rao was the one who taught Sheng Luan's fighting skills. Last time, he had taken the initiative to appear and, enthusiastically, meet Zichun. Of course, it was deliberate. He had left an indelible mark on Zichun's body. That was why he was unmoved when the 3 carriages left one after another yesterday. A caravan appeared in front of them. There were quite a few people, more than 100. Looking at the caravan, Saint Rao said indifferently, "Leave no one alive." Sheng Luan nodded. After coming back from the dead, he naturally became a member of the sacred mountain. At this moment, he was also a member of the sacred mountain. Just as he was about to step forward, he was surprised to find that the flag of the caravan belonged to the sacred mountain. Furthermore, it was the sacred soul mountain. They were definitely on the same side. Saint Rao obviously also noticed this and was slightly taken aback. "Is there a mistake?" Sheng Luan asked. However, Saint Rao's eyes quickly became cold. "Humph, do you think you can fool me with such petty tricks? Do you think I will let you go just because you borrowed the name of the sacred soul mountain? Kill them all." Sheng Luan also understood Saint Rao's meaning. He waved his hand and said, "Follow me." He led the people behind him and charged forward. The leader of the caravan in front saw people coming from afar and immediately shouted, "Be alert." When those people approached, he was slightly stunned and shouted, "Lord Sheng Luan, why are you here?" Sheng Luan's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he attacked mercilessly. Looking at the earth-shattering power in front of him, the leader shouted, "Lord, we are on the same side. We are on the same side." Energy surged and drowned the leader. Saint Yuan stood at the back, his expression extremely cold. He didn't care about the beings from the Saint Soul Mountain at all, even if he knew that some of them might be his own people. But since he dared to help Zichun escape, it was a betrayal and a death wish. However, as the number of people decreased one by one, his expression changed little by little. It seemed that no one in the team could fight. Until the last person died, there was no effective obstruction. Sheng Luan, who was already filled with murderous intent, looked at the sealed carriages and sneered, "You're really good at enduring. You didn't even come out." After saying that, he waved his hand again. Powerful energy surged as it whizzed forward. In an instant, it shattered those sealed carriages, causing numerous goods to scatter out from within. Sheng Luan couldn't help but be stunned. There wasn't a single person here. Saint Radiance, who had been watching from the back, also noticed the abnormality and immediately flew up. He didn't see Zichun, but he saw a mark in a pile of goods. He had left it on Zichun's body. It was impossible to discover, but someone had used a special method to extract it. In an instant, his face turned pale. He had been tricked. He had killed his own people. Sheng Luan and the others also guessed the result from Saint Radiance's face. For a moment, they were all stunned. "Who is it? Who is it?" Saint Radiance roared, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Dong! Suddenly, a loud sound rang out, and the ground began to shake. Dong! Dong! The ground continued to shake as if a giant was walking. Saint Radiance immediately turned around, staring in the direction of the sound. A person appeared on the horizon. There was only one person. The moment he saw that person, Saint Radiance's eyes seemed to spurt fire. Damn it, it's you. The middle-aged man walked over and said indifferently, It's been so many years, but your tricks haven't changed. It's time for you to improve. I let you run away in the past, but I didn't expect you to have the guts to come back. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, don't blame me for being impolite. Saint Radiance said coldly. His murderous intent began to surge. The Saint battle technique has already failed once. Where do you get the confidence to kill me? The newcomer stepped forward and stood 10 feet away from Saint Radiance. After hearing the words Saint battle technique, Shang Luan's expression changed. He guessed the newcomer's identity. Humph, that's just Zichen's luck. You lost to me in the past, and now you're still no match for me. Saint Radiance stared at Oli in front of him and said indifferently, Kill him for me. Immediately, someone rushed toward Oli. Obviously, Saint Radiance didn't seem to be very confident. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent his subordinates to test him. A light appeared in front of Oli and turned into a blade. The blade flashed with cold light and was extremely sharp. The blade moved forward. An arc of light streaked across the sky, and the newcomer was cut in two. He didn't hold back because he was here to kill. Today was the day to settle the grudges from many years ago. In these 3 days, Zichen was able to name most of the people in this team. Among them, a swordsman called Huaming had left a deep impression on Zichen. Although Huaming was a guard, he was very talkative. Every day when they were on the road, he spent most of his time chatting with others. He had a lively personality, but he was also a good fighter. He carried a blade that had never been unsheathed on his back. He considered himself a swordsman. It was said that he was the second strongest in the team. Besides the leader, Guatao, he was the strongest. Just yesterday, he took in a new follower who admired him very much. That young man followed beside the swordsman and was at his beck and call. A thunder-like explosion suddenly came from the horizon, followed by a gust of wind and waves. In this gust of wind, there was a strong fluctuation of soul power. At the front, Guatao immediately raised his hand and signaled the team to stop. Sitting on the back of the exotic beast, Huaming narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. Someone is fighting, and it's not small. Could it be that a caravan has encountered bandits? The follower beside Huaming immediately said, Even if there are bandits, there is no need to be afraid. With Big Brother Huaming around, all enemies can be dealt with one strike. Huaming looked around and said proudly, That is natural. The saber on my back has been thirsty for a long time. If you are blind, come at me. The energy in front was still trembling, indicating that the battle had not ended. Guatao said, Wait here for a moment. When Zichen sensed this energy fluctuation, his expression changed slightly. This was because there was an aura that he was familiar with. Leader, this is not too good, right? If there are bandits attacking the caravan, we can go over now and take care of them. It is better than being attacked one by one, right? At this moment, Huaming gave a different opinion. Don't be careless. Let's wait here first and observe the situation, Guatao said again. Just at this moment, the trembling in front suddenly stopped. The battle should have ended. After some hesitation, Guatao signaled for everyone to continue on their way. Even though they purposely slowed down, they still saw the battlefield as they moved forward. Corpses littered the battlefield. Blood flowed, and a person stood with a saber. Chapter 3889. Seeing the corpses all over the ground, everyone's expression changed. When they looked at the person standing with the saber again, they all kept quiet out of fear. It's someone from the sacred mountain. He even dared to kill someone from the sacred mountain. A tattered flag was waving there. The symbol of the sacred mountain was very conspicuous. The group did not dare to move forward. Good Lord, this is a ruthless person. Luo Ming lowered his head slightly, then held onto the long saber behind him, trying not to be too conspicuous. If it were not for the subordinates beside him, he might have jumped down immediately. That was because that was a real saber wielder. The other party dared to touch someone from the sacred mountain. How could he be an ordinary person? They might even lose their lives. At this moment, he kept cursing Guatao in his heart. How good would it be if the group walked a little slower? Why did they have to walk so fast? Were they in a hurry to die? Zichen saw the person clearly, and his expression changed. Even if he tried to restrain himself, he still could not suppress the fluctuation of his emotions. That was because that saber-wielder was Oli. Among the dead were Shang Luan and Shang Luo, who had schemed against him. Long Gu Ming, Shanya, and Jiu Er's expressions also changed. Of course, they also knew Oli. They were very surprised to see Oli covered in blood. Fortunately, the others were also the same, so no one paid attention to them. Oli turned around and his gaze swept across everyone. At this moment, his body was covered in wounds, and he looked very miserable. But compared to those who were dead, he was naturally the one who was victorious. In the end, his gaze fell on Zichun. There was no exchange of words, only a meeting of eyes. Zichun understood Oli's meaning. This is my last journey to protect you. You will have to rely on yourself for the rest of the journey. Zichun did not nod. He appreciated Oli's kindness. Go quickly. Guotao's voice sounded at this moment. After sensing that the saber-wielder did not have any killing intent, he did not dare to stay any longer. The group began to take a detour. Zichun and Oli's gazes met. No words were needed. As the group walked away, Oli's gaze remained fixed on the group for a long time. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze and looked at the corpse on the ground. Old man, I've avenged you. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it. What's even more regretful is that I have a good successor. In the future, he is destined to make the martial arts world famous. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it. After he finished speaking, Oli's figure swayed and fell backward. Why are you doing this? An old voice sounded as an old man suddenly appeared and supported Oli. It was old Tang, who had not appeared for a long time. Oli, whose aura was weak, glanced at old Tang and said, "How delightful. After so many years, I haven't been this happy more than a few times." Last time, Zichen had used the tremor fighting technique to win, and Zichun had obtained the strongest inheritance. Today was also the first time. This is so King satisfying. You dare to compete with me? See if I don't beat you to death. Old Tang took out a pill and snorted. You may be happy, but you almost lost your life. I'm already so old. Do you think it's easy to earn some blue crystal coins? You'll have to give me a discount for this pill. Oli took the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. Then, he chuckled. That won't do. My blue crystal coins are for drinking for the rest of my life. Besides, didn't you make a lot of money this time? Other than the Shishan brothers who believed in Zichun and made a lot of money, Old Tang, Oli, and even Wu Yud had secretly bet on Zichun. Many people had made a lot of money. Seeing that Oli's face was ruddy and his aura was no longer weak, Old Tang said, "Looks like you won't die. Let's go." Old Tang walked forward. Old Tang. Oli suddenly shouted. Old Tang stopped in his tracks. I haven't been able to say thank you. This time, I'll make it up to you. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to leave the Sagely Mountain City, said Oli. Old Tang turned around and looked at Oli with a strange expression. He said, Why do you sound like you're going to part with your life? Oli said, I don't have the strength to continue on the road ahead. I'll consider it a success. But you, don't die. Old Tang waved his sleeves and said, Don't jinx it. My biggest dream is to open a noodle shop. My shop is only temporarily closed. Sooner or later, I'll return to my old business. As Old Tang spoke, his body walked forward. After taking a few steps, his body disappeared. That swordsman from before has some skills. He has some of my style. After walking for a long distance, the swordsman Luo Ming, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. His follower beside him also took a deep breath and said, That's not necessarily true. In terms of elegance, he's not as good as you, big brother Luo Ming. Guotao, who was walking at the front, remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking. The surrounding people also started whispering to each other. The swordsman actually dared to kill someone from the Sagely Mountain. He was definitely a daring fellow. However, he actually let them go. This still surprised them, who had just survived a disaster. Zichen's group of 4 was not in a good mood. They remained silent. Just at this moment, Luo Ming slapped his forehead and said, Not good. It's not that that swordsman is willing to let us go. Instead, he is severely injured and can no longer attack us. Right now, he has probably already fled the scene and is looking for a place to treat his injuries. The surroundings were in an uproar. Clearly, this possibility existed. Let's continue. Don't stop, Guatao suddenly said. Clearly, he was worried that Luo Ming's guess was right. If the swordsman really recovered, he might come to silence them. Although Zichen knew that such a thing would not happen, he would not purposely remind Luo Ming. He followed the others and continued moving forward at full speed. This journey took an entire day, covering a distance of several hundred kilometers. Fortunately, everyone had a good foundation. However, they also expended a lot of energy. Guatao guessed that the expert would not be able to catch up. So, he indicated for the group to stop and rest for now. The Luo Ming bladesman jumped off the mutated beast's back. He patted the mutated beast's head and smiled. "Little fellow, you've worked hard. I'll go get you something to eat." The Luo Ming bladesman walked into the distance. Clearly, he was going to get some food for the mutated beast. Coincidentally or not, he passed by Zichen's group of 4. Zichen's eyes flashed slightly. The scabbard on Luo Ming's back trembled slightly. Then, the saber that had never been unsheathed instantly came out of its scabbard. This was the first time the bladesman drew his saber. Suddenly, a dazzling light appeared. The saber light was not aimed at the enemy, but at Xiao. Chapter 3890. No one would have thought that this relatively strong, talkative, and kind swordsman would aim his first attack at Shijiu. Shijiu couldn't react in time, and neither could Lan Guming and Shanya. The glint of the blade approached. The moment danger struck, a ray of light appeared on Shijiu's body, forming a defensive barrier. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of Ma Yingming's mouth. If he did not find the right target, then his attack would naturally return empty-handed. However, if his choice was correct, then this unsheathed attack would kill. With a snap, the defensive barrier on Shijiu's body shattered in an instant. The glint of the blade continued to approach Shijiu, aiming for her neck. He was going to behead her in one strike. The sudden change happened so quickly that the people around them didn't understand what was going on. They were all in a daze. Just then, a black claw mark, emitting a cold metallic luster, suddenly appeared in front of the glint of the blade. Clang! Clang! 2 clanging sounds rang out at almost the same time. The swordsman, Ma Ming, felt a strong vibration coming from the blade. His body kept retreating. However, he wasn't concerned about his attack being blocked. Instead, he was concerned about the other clanging sound. Did he fail as well? He took 5 steps back and was able to stabilize his body. But just to be safe, he took another 5 steps back. Hu Ming looked forward and saw a small black beast that wasn't very big. It was currently floating in the air in front of Xiao, whose face had turned pale. After taking a closer look at the little beast, his expression changed. As someone who had stayed in the Sagely Mountain City for a few months, he naturally recognized the little beast. It was Zichen's pet beast. But why was Zichen's pet here? Ma Ming's gaze continued to move. He looked behind Shijiu and saw his little brother. His little brother no longer had that look of worship and curiosity. Instead, his expression was solemn. He held a short sword in his hand, and the hand that held it was trembling. Even he, who was supposed to kill, had failed. An ordinary-looking guy with a black staff in his hand stood opposite him, or rather, behind Shijiu. He remembered that the guy had introduced himself as Qin's, but of course, Halcyon didn't think so. Perhaps the guy had just used an alias and used his real name. The belated Ma Ming felt a sense of regret. If he had known earlier that Zichen was also in this team, he wouldn't have acted so hastily. Right now, it was clearly impossible to kill the target in front of the other party. As soon as this thought appeared, he had the intention to retreat. It was at this moment that the other people in the surroundings reacted and retreated one after another. Horror filled their eyes. Unexpectedly, before that bladesman appeared, they started fighting among themselves. There was a flash of light in front of Zichen, and he returned to his original appearance. "I wanted to go the rest of the way safely, but I didn't expect you two to expose my identity. It's definitely too late for you to retreat now. Just fight it out. Perhaps the two of you still have a chance." There was an uproar in the surroundings. Right now, there was no one who did not know of Zichen. If this person was Zichun, then the identities of the other people were almost obvious. Sure enough, Shanya and Lan Guming no longer hid their identities. Shijio had also returned to her original appearance, but her recognition was obviously not as good as the two girls. Halcyon and the Existence, who claimed to be his little brother, looked at each other. Knowing that there was no way out, the two decided to fight to the death. Halcyon struck out again. Saber intent lingered, and the saber light became even brighter. Yugue left in front of Shijio and landed on Zichen's shoulder again. Obviously, he didn't intend to continue blocking the attack for Shijio. A sword light flew out in front of Lan Guming and blocked the saber light. In an instant, the saber light shattered, and the sword light continued forward. This weapon, which had obviously advanced to the level of 100 soldiers, cut Halcyon's saber and pierced through Halcyon's body. It drew an arc behind him and disappeared in front of Lan Guming. Halcyon's forward body stopped, and his vitality began to fade. A sword strike ended the battle. On the other side, Zichen raised his staff and swung it down. A powerful wave of air surged and spread out, bringing up a lot of smoke and dust. Accompanied by a violent roar, the earth shook, and a long crack appeared, sending sand and stones flying. After the strange phenomenon disappeared, the Existence who attacked Shijio was already dead. These two people's true combat strength wasn't strong. They were mainly good at assassination. At this time, everyone still stayed around and didn't dare to come forward. Shijio stood there and didn't say a word. Her original intention was to help Zichun, but she didn't expect that she would be the first to be in danger. After the two died, Zichen turned his head to look at Guatao and nodded slightly at him. Guatao immediately waved his hand, and a few people came forward to deal with the bodies. Everyone continued to rest. However, someone had just died here, so the group tacitly moved forward a few miles. During this period, no one approached Zichen's group. They were naturally worried that Zichen would misunderstand and kill them with a single strike. A few miles away, a bonfire rose. Zichen's group of 4 sat together. There was no one within 100 feet of them. "I'm sorry," said Shiju in shame. "There's no need to blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you," said Zichen. At this moment, he seemed to understand the reason why Undrunk Loft let Shijio go with them. Shanya gently patted Shijio's shoulder, indicating that she didn't need to think too much. At this moment, Guatao walked over. However, when he was dozens of feet away from Zichen, he paused slightly. After seeing Zichen nod, he continued approaching. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Guatao sat beside Zichen. Zichen shook his head and said, "You have to be careful. There should be a lot of danger ahead. Try your best to protect your people. Or, you can take your people and leave in advance." "I promised the customer that I would send you safely to the place," said Guatao. "There's no need for that. In fact, it's also a good thing that you take your people and leave first. No one should attack you again. Besides, I don't really trust the people in the group now. After all, if there's an assassination once, there will be a second time." Zichen's concerns existed, but Guatao's persistence was beyond imagination. "I will let my people stay 100 feet away from you and not disturb you." Zichen didn't say anything else. He respected Guatao's choice. After resting for a night, the group continued on their way. Everyone was no longer so worried about the swordsman who dared to kill the people of the sacred mountain. This was because Zichen was in the group. He had hundreds of soldiers with him and was an existence that could suppress Shangluan. However, because they were too nervous before, they didn't notice that Shangluan, who had been defeated by Zichen, had fallen into a pool of blood again. This time, after leaving the sacred mountain, without the protection of the mirror spirit, he couldn't be more dead. On Zichen's way, Yui had been waiting for a long time. He obviously wasn't impulsive. Instead, he was fully prepared. Chapter 3891. There were many people who wanted to kill Zichen, and Yui was one of them with a strong desire to kill. This time, he came to the road ahead early in the morning, and his target was Zichen. He waited for half a month. As for the Earth Soul beside him, he had enough patience to wait. This was because Zichen had something he needed, or rather, something he coveted. Could it be that someone else beat us to it? Besides Yu, there was another young man who also had a strong desire to kill Zichen, and that was Chen Kai, who was not qualified to stay in the sacred mountain. This time, he and Yui chose to cooperate. The latest news is that Zichen is walking in this direction, and we will be the first to meet him, Yui said confidently, with cold killing intent in his eyes. In the vision of the two, a group of people appeared. The group had close to 100 people, and after seeing the people blocking the road ahead, they stopped. During this time, four people did not stop and continued to move forward. Yui saw the people coming, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. They were finally here. The others also became alert, and lights circulated around their bodies. Yui turned around and saw that the old man behind her had disappeared into thin air. Chen Kai smiled proudly. They're really here. This time we're going to be rich. He seemed to see the scene of Zichen's death. Behind him, another old man disappeared into thin air. Zichen and the other three did not stop walking, even though they had already seen Yui. After deciding not to hide his identity anymore, Zichen had the idea of killing his way out of this mess. Zichen, you're really brave. A sneer sounded. It was Yui. You're still alive, which surprised me, Zichen said lightly. As long as my life spirit shield is not destroyed, I'm immortal. Yui looked at Zichen and said, I have to thank you for helping me baptize my life spirit shield, and I heard that it's ranked very high. Zichen's hand flashed, and the life spirit shield appeared, shining brightly. Are you sure it's still yours? It's my natal item. As long as it's not broken, it's mine. Yui smiled complacently and said, Shield, come. In Zichen's hand, the light of the spirit shield was still blooming, but there was no abnormality. Zichen looked at Yui, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Shield, come. Yui's expression changed, and she shouted once more. A strange energy came from the front, like a ripple of vibration. Zichen held the light shield in his hand and stood there motionless. When the ripple came into contact with Zichen and the light shield, it disappeared. During this time, the light shield did not react. Shield, come. Shield me. Shield, return. Shield, come. Yui was unwilling to give up and shouted a few more times. Every time, a strange phenomenon appeared, but the light shield still did not have any reaction. Old Tang was Zichen's guardian, and his realm was extremely high. After obtaining the spirit shield, Zichen naturally had to let him check it, especially after knowing that Yui was still alive. At first, Old Tang also had this concern. After all, Yui had grown with this shield for many years. But after Old Tang carefully checked it, he unexpectedly found that the light shield had completely recognized him as its master, and there were no hidden dangers. As for why this was so, even Old Tang could not explain it clearly. So when he saw Yui again today, Zichen could calmly take out this shield. Even if Yui shouted herself hoarse, the result would not change. Looking at the anxious Yui, who was sweating profusely, Zichen once again laughed sarcastically. But at this time, his expression suddenly changed. He raised the spirit shield in his hand, and countless rays of light blossomed from the spirit shield. A bony palm print suddenly appeared in the air, and like a ghost claw, it went straight for Zichen's head. Boom! A dull vibration sounded, and a powerful fluctuation spread out. Zichen, who was holding the shield, felt his arm sink as a huge force came through the light shield. He was pushed back by the huge force. Shanya and the other two also retreated. After the ghost claw, an old man walked out of the air. There was no powerful aura around him, but he gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. The old man looked at Zichen in front of him and said indifferently, If it wasn't for this shield, this old man could kill you in one move. Behind the light shield, Zichen replied, If we were in the same realm, I would be able to beat 100 of you. In the previous attack, Zichen had clearly sensed that the opponent's realm was the Earth Soul realm, and the fact that the opponent could approach him was enough to prove that he was fully prepared. Sure enough, Old Tang, who had been tailing them, appeared behind them. But there was also another person in front of Old Tang. Since the other party dared to block Old Tang, they were naturally also in the Earth Soul realm. The other party stopped Old Tang and said, Why don't we wait and watch the show first? Old Tang said calmly, It's not easy to reach this step. Why do you want to seek death? The other party said, we're both in the Earth Soul realm, and there's not much difference between us. It's hard for me to kill you, but it's also not that easy for you to kill me. However, I'm not here to fight to the death with you today. I just need to delay you for a moment. A moment was enough for an Earth Soul Realm expert to kill a human Soul Realm expert. This was an indisputable fact. Just as the Earth Soul Realm expert finished speaking, Zichen's opponent, the skinny old man, made his move. While suppressing his realm, he also chose to take the initiative to attack. Behind him, Yu Yi and Chun Kai didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this, because Zichen's current battle strength could no longer be measured by the human soul realm. Experts of the same realm couldn't even last 2 moves in front of him. The advantage of numbers was useless. This was something that those who were qualified to join the sacred mountain had already proven countless times for them. Only by suppressing his realm could he truly kill his opponent. Just as the Earth Soul Realm expert made his move, Zichun also moved. He held a shield in his left hand, and a mysterious object appeared in his right hand. This was the first time Zichun took out the sacred talisman brush to defend against an enemy after it was completed. The tip of the brush blossomed with light, and as Zichun's brush landed, his soul power left a mark in the sky. The soul power between heaven and earth was like boiling water, crazily gathering at the place where Zichun's brush landed. The scarlet-winged tiger. An earth-shaking tiger roar resounded, shaking the surroundings. A winged tiger as large as a mountain appeared out of thin air, charging straight for the Earth Soul Realm expert. With the mysterious object, Zichun's brush moved even faster, and the winged tiger's aura became even more tyrannical. This winged tiger was enough to sweep away most of the human soul realm experts in the world. But in front of an Earth Soul Realm expert, it wasn't enough. The skinny palm fell from the sky, and the world instantly darkened, as if dark clouds were covering the sky. The huge palm print instantly drowned the winged tiger. With a loud bang, the scarlet-winged tiger's body exploded. After Zichun finished his brush, he didn't stop. He, who was fighting an Earth Soul Realm expert, naturally didn't dare to be careless. The sacred talisman brush in his hand fell again, and thunder rumbled in the sky as a long-horned serpent appeared. Chapter 3892. The battle caused a huge commotion. Powerful shockwaves swept over from afar like a storm. Guatao and the others retreated again and again. At this moment, there was only shock in their eyes. Zichun was too strong. Even if he only used the holy talisman art, it was still terrifying. An ordinary human soul would only be courting death if they went forward. Only an Earth Soul could truly suppress Zichun. In fact, the other party did the same. An Earth Soul destroyed the scarlet-winged tiger with a single palm. But immediately after, Zichun exerted his strength again. A serpent appeared out of thin air, carrying lightning and dark clouds as it headed straight for the Earth Soul Old Man. The old man struck out again, repelling the serpent with a single palm. It was only repelled, but not destroyed. Powerful energy shook the sky, forming a shockwave that spread out in all directions. Shanya and Lan Gumeng were not idle bystanders. Just as Zichen and the Earth Soul were fighting, the two of them also attacked one after another. Their targets were Yu Yi, Chen Kai, and the others. Swoosh! Lan Gumeng's longsword pierced through the body of a human soul. This weapon had long reached the level of 100 weapons and was even ranked at the top. It was not a problem for it to kill a mere human soul. Shanya did not use her weapon. Instead, she charged forward. A strange power that belonged to her appeared around her. Her opponent was a human soul with a soul weapon. When he saw Shanya arrive, he used a powerful attack. A sharp aura surged forward. Light appeared at the tip of Shanya's finger and disappeared in a flash. She stood behind the human soul. The soul weapon in the opponent's hand was still in attack mode, but his figure had already stopped. There was a red line between his brows. This was Shanya's power. It was like the nemesis of all soul power in the world. She could easily kill her enemies without even using a soul weapon. She and Lan Gumeng advanced side by side, killing one human soul after another. Shiji, Er's position was slightly behind. When Yu Yi and Chun Kai saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. Disbelief filled their eyes. They never thought that the two people following Zichun would be so powerful. In fact, the two of them were not weak. The reason why they were not very famous was because Zichun was too dazzling. As for the two women standing beside Zichun, although they were also noticed, most people paid more attention to their beauty. Their true combat strength was completely ignored. Shield, come. Looking at the two people gradually approaching, Yui felt a little nervous. He used the secret technique again and shouted. Naturally, he returned without any results. At this moment, a thin ray of light flew from the side, like an enlarged embroidery needle. Yui couldn't help but shudder when she sensed his sharp aura. Since the life companion's spirit shield had not returned, he could only use a defensive method. A strange light protected his body. The enlarged embroidery needle was blocked outside. It kept spinning at high speed, trying to break through the defense. That was Xiao Er's soul weapon, and it was blocked by Yu Yi's defense. Yui let out a sigh of relief. Whoosh! At this moment, a sharp whistle sounded. Lan Gu Ming's soul sword arrived, shining with a dazzling blue light. Buzz! Yu Yi's defense began to tremble violently, as if it could break at any time. This scared Yui so much that her face turned pale and she cried out in alarm. At this moment, Zichun's opponent, the skinny old man, had already destroyed the Sky Thunder Dragon. He had used a total of 3 attacks. Feeling the abnormality behind him, he planned to go back to help. At this moment, Zichun put away his brush and held his staff. Using the strange footwork of the combat technique, his figure flashed and arrived in front of the Earth Soul Realm. He smashed down with his staff. The patterns on the staff lit up instantly. The original black light was replaced by a purple light. A clear purple staff shadow appeared between heaven and earth, like a giant's weapon. The old man snorted and raised his palm to attack again. A terrifying power surged out from his skinny palm. With a loud bang, the staff shadow dissipated. Zichun retreated a few feet. The purple staff in his hand smashed down again with a mighty aura. The spectators in the distance were all shocked. Zichun was only at the human soul realm. Not only did he block the attacks of an earth soul realm several times, he even took the initiative to attack. He's really amazing. Guatao sighed from the bottom of his heart. They were both at the human soul realm, but the gap between him and Zichun wasn't small. Old Tang didn't attack immediately. Instead, he watched quietly. He wasn't surprised that Zichun could block the attacks of an Earth Soul Realm expert. Everything was within his expectations. His opponent, who was originally very calm, couldn't sit still anymore. Looking at Zichun's methods, he obviously wouldn't be defeated before his strength was exhausted. Old Chun, stop hiding your strength. Quickly finish him off. The Earth Soul Realm expert from the Yu family said loudly. Zichun's opponent couldn't help sighing. I never expected that I would have to use my full strength to deal with a mere human soul realm expert. Forget it. This brat is indeed difficult to deal with. I'll just go all out. As for whether I'll become a joke in the future, that can only be discussed in the future. He stretched his hand out and pressed against the void. His soul energy started to circulate wildly. A black palm appeared in the sky. It looked like the skeleton of a ghost. It was dozens of feet large. Black light lingered on the skeleton, and it was filled with an evil aura. Brat, you should be proud to be able to force an Earth Soul Realm expert to use his full strength. The demonic claw immediately pressed down and a bizarre energy enveloped the area. Zichun felt that the space around him had been locked down and he couldn't dodge. Light shot out from his eyes as he circulated his spiritual shield with all his strength. The spiritual shield instantly enlarged and enveloped Zichun. The demonic claw brought along a terrifying aura as it grabbed the light shield. Countless energies converged at the same time. The enlarged light shield was being squeezed, and it started to shrink. Zichun curled up in the light shield and constantly channeled energy into it. Boom! The energy of both sides was constantly being consumed. In the end, the demonic claw was the first to collapse. Zichun's figure appeared. He glanced at the undamaged light shield and his eyes were filled with joy. This was the full strength attack of an Earth Soul Realm expert. He didn't hold back at all. If it wasn't for the extraordinary quality of the spiritual shield, he wouldn't have been able to block it. At this moment, he really wanted to thank Yui personally. That was because this shield was too practical for him. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang out from behind. It was Yu Yi's defense that had been broken. Following that, Lan Guming and Xiao Er's soul weapons pierced through each other's bodies. Yui let out a miserable cry and fell into a pool of blood. "You're courting death." The Earth Soul Realm expert who had been restraining Old Tang roared and turned around to help. At this moment, Old Tang moved. There was no probing or foreplay. He attacked with his full strength. A ray of light shot forward like a bolt of lightning and instantly pierced through the Earth Soul Realm expert's body. At the same time, the speed of the ray of light didn't decrease as it continued towards Zichen's opponent. The opponent's expression changed drastically as he turned around and struck out with his palm. An even more terrifying power surged out from his withered palm. This ray of light wasn't blocked at all. It directly pierced through the opponent's arm and pierced into his forehead. Chapter 38-93. The rainbow light returned to Old Tang's side and disappeared in a flash. Old Tang looked at the two Earth Soul Realms standing there temporarily inside. What's the point of doing this? The two powerful Earth Soul Realms gradually lost their vitality and fell to the ground. With a bang, smoke and dust rose. Yui was not dead yet, but he felt that he might as well die now. Whether or not there was an Earth Soul Realm existence in a family was extremely important. The weight of an Earth Soul Realm expert was also unimaginable. Now, one of their Yu clan's Earth Soul Realms had died in battle. This was a huge blow to the Yu clan. The overall strength of the Yu clan would be reduced by at least a third. With this, the competing forces would naturally take the opportunity to rise. However, Yu Yi's worries were obviously unnecessary, because after the two Earth Soul Realms died, he would not be able to live either. In other words, none of the people he brought would be able to leave alive. The powerful attack approached again, drowning him like a sea. The battle ended quickly. There were more than 20 corpses on the ground. Among them, the two Earth Soul Realms corpses were especially conspicuous, because even though they were already dead, the aura emitted from their bodies was still powerful. Zichun turned around and looked at Old Tang, preparing to praise him. Old Tang's protective power was too strong. But soon, Zichun saw that Old Tang's face was pale, as if he had suffered heavy injuries. Obviously, Old Tang had paid a great price to suddenly kill the two Earth Soul Realms. Old Tang looked at Zichun and said, "I'm powerless to fight anymore. It's up to you guys now." Zichun's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He looked around but did not see anyone. "Yu Gue," he called out softly. Yu Gue flew over from afar and landed on Zichun's shoulder, then looked around. There was a flickering light in its eyes, and finally, its gaze fixed on a certain spot. The staff in Zichun's hand glowed, and nearly 2/3 of the runes lit up. The staff turned purple, and he waved it in the air. Whoosh! A purple-gold staff shadow extended out horizontally. When it came into contact with 100 feet away, it exploded with waves of fluctuations. In the fluctuations, figures appeared and were sent flying. There were actually 5 of them, all of them in the human soul realm. It was unknown when they had been hiding in the dark. Yu Gui's gaze continued to move and fixed in another direction. Zichun swung his staff again, and the staff once again swept across the area. The second wave of people appeared. It was definitely not a coincidence that they had been able to accurately force the enemy to reveal themselves twice. Yu Gue was able to see through their concealment methods. Then, without Zichun needing to do anything, the surrounding light flashed again, and one figure after another appeared. This time, there were even more human souls, nearly 100 of them. They could watch Yu Yi and Chen Kai die without doing anything. Of course, they were not from the two families. In this region, there was only one place that could mobilize so many human souls at once: Sacred Mountain. It seemed that the opportunity Zichun had obtained from the Sacred Mountain was so great that some people didn't want him to leave alive, even if he voluntarily gave up the Sacred Realm in exchange for his freedom. Old Tang looked at these people and didn't say anything. Behind him, Guatao and the others were shocked, but none of them dared to cry out. These human souls slowly approached, forming an encirclement. Old Tang, who was in the Earth Soul Realm, wasn't in the encirclement, and no one in the Earth Soul Realm appeared to restrain him. Zichen's group of 4 began to gather together, standing back to back, staring in 4 directions. The enemy came prepared. We have to go all out, Zichun said in a deep voice. He wasn't worried that the enemy would use numbers to suppress him, but everything had a limit. For example, he had just fought with an Earth Soul Realm expert, which had consumed a lot of his energy. Now that he was facing so many human souls, it would naturally be a bit difficult to fight. Moreover, if he wasn't wrong, these human soul stage cultivators all had powerful backgrounds and were truly capable. As if to verify Zichen's guess, light flashed in the vision of the 4 people, and soul weapons appeared one after another. These soul weapons were all Saint Soul weapons from the Saint Soul Mountain. Although there weren't hundreds of them, they were far superior to ordinary soul weapons. After taking out their Saint Soul weapons, they began to speed up. Behind them, everyone began to form hand seals, using the Saint Soul arts from the Saint Soul Mountain. Zichun raised his brush and a scarlet-winged tiger appeared, charging forward. Many of the approaching attacks were slapped down one by one. But there were even more attacks coming. These attacks naturally couldn't compare to the attack of an Earth Soul Realm expert, but there were many of them. Soon, the scarlet-winged tiger exploded. Zichun rushed out from the explosion, holding his staff and shield. Using his fighting technique, Zichun, who had killed his way into the crowd, was like a tiger that had grown wings. He used all his strength to activate the staff that was suffused with purple light, instantly shattering a Saint Soul weapon. The staff's momentum didn't decrease as it directly killed a human soul realm expert. To Zichun, this was a complete massacre, but it also consumed a lot of energy. Just as Zichun made his move, Yugue also quietly attacked the enemy. Right now, it had no problem killing a human soul realm expert. Old Tang stood in the distance, silently watching the battlefield, as if everything was as he said. He no longer had the strength to make a move. Further away, 2 people stood. Their figures were blocked by the clouds, so the people below couldn't see them, but they could easily see what was happening on the battlefield. Your Saint Mountain is really rich. You actually used so many human soul realm experts to exhaust the enemy. A middle-aged man standing on the left side as he looked at the one-sided battle in front of him. The person standing on the right said indifferently, "The Sacred Mountain has recruited too many people this time. We need them right now. Moreover, before coming here, we have already reached an agreement with the Mirror Spirit. These people have left behind a part of their souls. Even if they die here, they can be reborn." The person who spoke earlier exclaimed, "The Mirror Spirit is indeed omnipotent. In this continent, only the Mirror Spirit can do this, and in every battle, only the Sacred Mountain would be able to make such a big move. Brother Lon, you flatter us. This battle will be over soon. It's time for the 2 of us to take the stage. Everything will go according to the agreement. Your Lon family will provide accurate information, and after the matter is settled, you can take 100 soldiers." The 2 slowly descended from the sea of clouds. On the battlefield, Zichen's group and Yugue were all using their full strength. The number of human soul realm experts was decreasing one by one, and the pressure on them was also decreasing. However, they didn't feel relaxed. Instead, they felt more dignified. Because the enemy had sent out more than 100 human soul realm experts, how could there be no Earth Soul Realm experts in the dark? Boom! There was a huge energy shock, and the last human soul realm expert fell. Zichen's chest heaved up and down. His face was slightly pale, and there were more than a dozen small wounds on his body. He didn't know how much he was injured in this battle, but he had consumed a lot of energy. Old Tang, who had been watching the battle, suddenly turned his head and frowned. Chapter 3894. Sensing the aura of the Earth Soul Realm, Zichen laughed bitterly. As expected, we can't be kind. Right now, he had expended a lot of energy. It was obviously impossible for him to fight an Earth Soul Realm expert. The other party had clearly come prepared. They had no intention of letting them leave alive. As the Earth Soul Realm expert approached, Zichun said in a deep voice, "You guys go first. I'll cover you." Shanya glanced at Zichun and didn't say anything. However, her resolute gaze said everything. She, who had also expended a lot of energy, knew very well that if she really left this time, it would be an eternal farewell. "We can't leave," At this moment, Long Gu Ming's voice rang out. If we continue fighting, we might have a chance of survival. If we split up, we will definitely die. She looked around with vigilance in her eyes. At this moment, Yu Gue had locked onto another direction. He should have discovered something. Zichen glanced at Old Tang. The other party had killed 2 Earth Soul Realm experts in an instant. This was very impressive. Perhaps, Old Tang still had the ability to surprise him. I can at most help you restrain one. Old Tang looked at Zichun and said. Zichun gripped the staff in his hand tightly and said, That's fine too. Fighting one was better than fighting two. The 2 Earth Soul Realm experts separated. The Earth Soul Realm expert from the Lan family landed in front of Old Tang. He looked at Old Tang and said, How about the 2 of us also watch this battle? Obviously, he didn't want to expose his identity. Sure, but be careful not to lose your life. Old Tang said, It's not easy to reach the Earth Soul Realm. It's better to have fewer suicidal actions. The Earth Soul Realm expert from the Lan family smiled and said, If you still have the ability, then do as you wish. In a battle between Earth Soul Realm experts, it wasn't easy to determine the victor, and it was even more difficult to determine life and death. Old Tang's ability to kill 2 Earth Soul Realm experts in an instant was already very impressive. He didn't believe that the other party had such a method. The other Earth Soul Realm expert flew directly towards Zichun. He didn't attack immediately. Instead, he released the pressure of an Earth Soul Realm expert to give Zichen some pressure. Before you die, do you have any last words? The Earth Soul landed on the ground and slowly moved forward. The pressure that fell on Zichen increased as he moved forward. Zichun narrowed his eyes. Let's see if you have what it takes to kill me. You're still so stubborn even in the face of death. Interesting. The Earth Soul smiled faintly and said, Remember, the one who killed you is Shanir. A powerful aura began to surge, giving Zichun even more pressure. Shanir had seen the previous battle. He was very surprised to see the 2 Earth Soul Realm experts die, but he was even more relieved. This was because they had become the Oriole. If they had been the first to act as the Mantis, the 2 of them would have died on the spot. It was at this moment that Zichun put away his shield and staff. Saniel sneered and said, Weren't you very tough just now? What? Are you going to accept your fate now? Although he said that, he didn't let down his guard at all. Zichun had too many good things on him. He might have other trump cards and tricks up his sleeve. Sure enough, the next moment, a holy talisman brush appeared in Zichen's hand. According to the information he received, the holy talisman brush had a great origin. As the consumption increased, Zichen had to go all out. Hence, he took out the unfathomable brush. The holy talisman art should be of some use at this moment. He took a deep breath and his eyes turned cold. His soul power began to surge. He raised the brush, and the tip of the brush bloomed. He drew a horizontal stroke. Heaven and earth brush. A straight ray of light was left in the air. It was like the rule light that cut through heaven and earth as it swept toward the Earth Soul Realm expert. This was a powerful move that Zichun had intentionally hidden. He hadn't used it even when he was on the sacred mountain. This time, there was complete mystery. The power of his stroke had increased by several levels, and its power was much stronger than before. Compared to the ghost tiger and the serpent, it was much more powerful. Shunir's expression couldn't help but change. He clearly didn't expect Zichun to have such a powerful move even though the battle had lasted until now. A light flashed in his hand, and a soul weapon was about to appear. Zichun's move was indeed very powerful and posed a strong threat to him. However, he was confident that he could block it because he had a holy soul weapon, and it was the 100-soul weapon. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a ray of light appeared in front of Lan Gu Ming. The blue dragon beast that had never participated in a battle suddenly appeared. It was like a shining blue sun, and its body emitted a dazzling light. It appeared in the air and stared at Shunir. It waved its claws at him. A ray of blue light flew out at a speed faster than the holy talisman brush. It seemed to have crossed time and space and instantly landed on Shunir's body. The blue light enveloped his body. Shunir felt that the time and space around him seemed to have changed. Space was in chaos, and time was still. The weapon in his hand that had yet to appear was also blocked by a strange force. It was in a static state and no longer appeared. Even his thoughts paused for a moment. This change happened very quickly, but it also disappeared very quickly. It happened in an instant, like an illusion. Shunir's thoughts became clear once more. The weapon in his hand appeared. It was an extremely sharp sword. It was the Light Shadow sword. It had once been the 100-soul weapon. However, it had been pushed down by Zichun and the other two's weapons. Even though it had been removed from the 100-soul weapon, Shunir was still confident that he could use it to kill Zichun. Shunir was very confident. However, what had just happened was not an illusion. It was real. Just as he paused, the holy talisman brush was already nearing him. The moment he regained consciousness, the holy talisman brush had already reached him. There was no sound. It was as if the laws had descended. Without a sound, Shunir's body was split in two. All the power in his body was rapidly draining away. His originally confident face was now filled with fear. He had no idea what had just happened. A ray of soul light immediately flew out from between his eyebrows. It swept up the light shadow sword that had fallen and flew into the distance. The Earth Soul Realm expert from the Lan family was stunned when he saw this scene. He was a little dazed. "You were distracted." Old Tang's indifferent voice was heard. The light in front of him flashed again. The rainbow lightning appeared again and penetrated the Earth Soul Realm expert from the Lan family. The Earth Soul Realm expert from the Lan family let out a scream and immediately fled into the distance. The two Earth Soul Realm experts had fled with serious injuries. Shunir from the Saint Soul Mountain had even lost his physical body. It was a great loss. This scene was not what Zichun had expected. It was an absolute surprise. When he turned back to look at the blue dragon beast, he realized that its aura was no longer stable. The dazzling blue light around it had dimmed. Chapter 3895. The spectators in the distance were almost petrified. Zichun was too powerful. He had seriously injured an Earth Soul Realm expert with one move. If the other party hadn't reacted quickly and fled in time, he would probably have stayed here forever. Some of them had seen Zichun's battle in the Sacred Mountain, but compared to today's battle, that battle was nothing. Guotao's eyes flickered. He was extremely shocked and impressed at the same time. Such a powerful human soul realm expert was definitely not seen in 1,000 years. He might even be the strongest human soul realm expert in the world. However, Zichun's current state was clearly not as good as before. The prolonged battle had consumed too much of his energy. But had the crisis been resolved? At this moment, Zichun took a step forward and drew another stroke in the air with the sacred talisman brush. It was the same attack he had used against the Earth Soul Realm expert, but it wasn't as powerful as before. Perhaps it was because he had consumed too much energy, or perhaps it was because Zichun had deliberately held back. The power of that stroke extended into the distance. Wherever it passed, the space seemed to be split into two. The human soul realm experts hidden in the space were also split into two. There's more? Guotao's pupils shrank. He was extremely shocked. The enemies were endless. They had no intention of letting Zichun go. With a stroke, 3 human soul realm experts who couldn't dodge in time were killed. There were still 2 who managed to dodge in time. Before Zichun could make a second stroke, those hidden in the dark appeared one by one. This time, there were dozens of people. After they appeared, they didn't charge at Zichun. Instead, they attacked him from afar. Sacred talismans. They were all sacred talismans. They were from the Sacred Talisman Mountain. After seeing the sacred talismans in the sky, Zichun's expression immediately turned ugly. He didn't expect that even the Sacred Talisman Mountain would send people. The next moment, a sacred talisman flew out in front of him, forming a huge defense. The attack of a sacred talisman master was definitely extraordinary. Moreover, there were so many of them. Shijiur, Lan Guming, and Shanya immediately retreated and hid in the defense. Old Tang was still standing in the distance. He was clearly unable to fight anymore, but no one attacked him. When the sacred talisman's attack landed, the energy rumbled and a terrifying shockwave spread out. Next, it was time for the Saint Talisman Masters to perform. In the eyes of the others, the expensive sacred talismans seemed like they were worthless as they rushed madly in Zichun's direction. Thick smoke billowed as the ground began to sink. A huge crater appeared. No one could see how Zichen's group was doing, but judging from their previous state and the fact that they were being attacked by so many Saint Talismans, it was unlikely that they were in a good state. 15 minutes. Those holy talismans exploded for a full quarter of an hour. Smoke and dust filled the sky, and not a single person could be seen. Such a long period of time was more than enough for these Saint Talisman masters to exhaust all of their offensive Saint Talismans. Then, they stopped and began to approach each other. If he was alive, he wanted to see him. If he was dead, he wanted to see the corpse. Besides, Zichen had something they needed. He's not really dead, is he? Guatao looked at the deep pit in front of him with a hint of worry in his eyes. The smoke and dust were currently scattering, but there was still no activity. Perhaps it was a disaster. At this moment, a blue light suddenly flew out from the dissipating smoke and dust. Like a bolt of lightning, it pierced through the body of a human soul realm cultivator. A dazzling ray of light followed closely behind, flying towards the second human soul realm cultivator. This was Shan Yu's soul weapon, which was also a 100 soul weapon. After that, Ji Er's and Zichen's soul weapons also flew out and attacked the enemy. At the same time, soul power from all directions gathered towards the deep pit, causing the smoke and dust to fly up again. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and lightning appeared from within. A serpent appeared under the dark clouds. Its body was as large as a mountain, and it carried a terrifying aura as it charged towards the enemy outside the deep pit. Cries of surprise came from afar. Clearly, after such a violent attack, Zichen's group was still alive. Moreover, the power of their counterattack was terrifying. The pale-faced old Tang sighed. As an Earth Soul Realm cultivator, even he began to admire Zichen. The dust and shock waves in the deep crater finally dissipated, and Zichen and the other three flew out. After seeing the state of the four of them, many people's faces changed. Including Zichen, the robes on their bodies were no longer intact, and their exposed skin was already dyed red with blood. They were all alive, but they were heavily injured. Whether or not they could survive this battle was still a question. The long staff that belonged to Zichen flew back. When it landed in his hand, he, who was covered in blood, charged forward with the staff. With each staff strike, he destroyed a ghost tiger. With a shield of light protecting his body, he charged through the violent energy and killed the human soul realm cultivator with a single strike. At this moment, he was moving around in a small area. Fighting techniques were extremely useful in this area. However, every time he killed a human soul realm cultivator, his energy consumption would increase. Zichen was almost exhausted. The human soul realm cultivators on the battlefield were decreasing one by one. It wasn't that they weren't strong, but that Zichen's group was too strong. Other than Shijio's weapon, the main soul weapons were the 100 soldiers from the Sacred Weapon Mountain. Even if they were heavily injured, they still had powerful strength. This was the power of the 100 soldiers themselves. The light on Lan Guming's blue sword became extremely dim and flew back to her side. Lan Guming's figure fell from the sky, but she didn't even have the strength to stay in the air. An attack appeared behind Lan Guming. Shanya came to her rescue in time. After killing the enemy, she also used up the last of her strength. As for Shijio, she was already exhausted. Only Zichen was still fighting, until the last human soul realm cultivator was killed by him. His figure fell from the sky, and he used his staff to support himself on the ground, not letting himself fall. As far as the eye could see, there were corpses everywhere. Just this battle alone might not be able to change the situation of some factions, but it would definitely cause them to suffer serious injuries. Zichen's breathing became hurried, and even his eyes became blurry. However, he didn't immediately start healing his injuries. Instead, he turned around and looked into the distance. No matter how intense or terrifying the battle was, that group of people didn't leave. They had been silently watching the battle. Zichen didn't know how many of them had problems, but there were definitely some. Guatao tidied his robes and looked around. After confirming that no one else had appeared, he walked forward. The gazes he saw changed, becoming extremely cold. As soon as he moved, 5 people walked out with him. It's really not easy to be the Oriole. Guatao, who was walking forward, said, I don't know how many people wanted to be the Oriole, but they didn't choose the right time and died here. Fortunately, we can endure better than them. Zichen looked at Guo and said indifferently, You clearly know that the Oriole is dead, yet you still dare to appear? You're already like this. What do I have to be afraid of? Chapter 3896. Lan Hua, are you from the Lan family? Hearing Lan Hua's self-introduction, Zichen's expression changed. He was in disbelief. His relationship with the Lan family was extraordinary. Why would the Lan family send someone to kill him? However, Zichen quickly understood. The Lan family was not Lan Rue's Lan family, but a force that ruled a state. There were too many people who could speak. Impossible. You must be Guo. At this moment, Xiao who was recuperating, spoke. This team was arranged by the Lan family. There was already an assassin. How could there be a problem with the leader of the team? How could the Lan family not be able to handle such a small matter? That short-lived guy you're talking about is already dead. Lan Hua laughed. Then, his appearance began to change. Maybe you don't know me, but you definitely know my brother. His name is Lan Qian. Zichen knew Lan Qian. He deliberately caused trouble for them. He seemed to be a brainless second generation, but in fact, he was a very scheming person. Last time, he took advantage of the situation and left a mark on Noah's body. That was the reason for the subsequent encirclement. However, that Lan Qian was dead? Who killed him? The puzzled Zichen pondered for a moment and understood. He must have died in a game between the families. After all, the enemies that came wanted to kill the heir, Lan Rue. Now you should know why you're dead, right? Lan Hua laughed again. There was a hint of malevolence in his smile. Today, none of you can think of leaving. Guo is dead? How is this possible? Xiao still couldn't believe it. The people she arranged this time were very careful. How could the news be leaked in advance? It's the Lan family. Zichen answered Xiao's doubts. The people who provided us with the information came from the Lan family. They should have people among them. Only the Lan family knew where Zichen was hiding. They also understood the Lan family's thoughts in advance. Therefore, they made some preparations. If it weren't for this incident, they would have continued to endure until Zichen relaxed his vigilance, or when they felt the time was right. Today's battle provided them with an extremely good opportunity. Therefore, Lan Hua no longer restrained himself and decided to stand out. Lan Hua looked at Zichen and said, Do you have any last words before you die? Lan Guming and the other two tried to stand up and face the enemy. However, they had consumed too much energy and the medicinal pills had not fully taken effect yet. Therefore, they were still powerless and sat back down. Zichen said indifferently, I should be the one asking you that. As soon as he said that, light suddenly shone from Zichen's body. Or perhaps it would be better to say that he was burning with flames. That was a kind of life flame. It was extremely gentle. After it appeared, Zichen's injuries began to heal. The energy he had consumed earlier also began to recover. This was a revival technique. It was a technique from the other black jade slip. The first black jade slip contained the heaven and earth brush. Previously, Zichen had used it with the blue dragon beast to split an earth soul realm expert into two. Now that the revival technique had appeared, it was as if infinite potential had been stimulated. Zichen's injuries and strength began to recover. Another great trump card that he had not used on the sacred mountain appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Good boy, you can really keep your composure. Old Tang sighed. If it were him, he would never have forced himself into such a dangerous situation. The three girls were extremely excited. They were very happy that Zichen still had a trump card. Zichen's change made Lan Hua's expression change. Obviously, he did not expect that Zichen still had such a trick up his sleeve. However, he was not afraid at all. He said coldly, So what if you have a trump card? You're already seriously injured. Let's see how many more attacks you can block. Zichen glanced at Lan Hua disdainfully. Then, he waved his hand and 9 Saint Talismans appeared in front of him. They were the ghost spirit Saint Talismans. In the next moment, 9 ghost spirits appeared and went straight for Lan Hua. Lan Hua said coldly, Since I dared to come, I naturally have a way to deal with this move of yours. He patted the jade pendant on his waist. A ray of light was released from it, forming a strange defense. Since he dared to come to kill Zichen, of course, he was fully prepared. However, would it work? Zichun ignored Lan Hua. Instead, he looked at the others, his eyes full of cold, killing intent. The flame of life was burning around him. He held the staff and moved forward, using the most powerful strength he had. At the same time, he used the power of the staff to kill these people one by one. The energy fluctuated. Zichen's body fell. Even though the flame of revival was still burning, his body swayed slightly and he almost fell. He looked at Lan Hua, who thought that he was fully prepared, standing there motionless. His vitality had disappeared. The power of the ghost spirit holy talisman was not something that Lan Hua could imagine. Zichen looked at the crowd in the distance. This time, no one stood out. He did not know whether it was because they were shocked by Zichen's combat strength, or because all the people who should have appeared had appeared. It seems that we're safe. Zichun sighed and finally relaxed. That's not necessarily true. A cold voice suddenly sounded. A person appeared out of thin air. The moment he appeared, a terrifying aura surged around him. It was another Earth Soul Realm expert. Your performance has surprised us, but that's as far as it goes. A second voice sounded. Another Earth Soul Realm expert had appeared. Zichen's face immediately turned pale. There were 2 more Earth Soul Realm experts. If that was the case, there were 6 of them. The 2 approached Zichen, one in front and one behind. Killing intent surged in their eyes. I happen to have one more attack. Which one of you will go first? Old Tang looked at the 2 and said. He had recovered some of his strength when he was watching the battle. Your opponent is me. The 3rd Earth Soul Realm expert appeared and landed directly in front of Old Tang. Looking at the 3 Earth Soul Realm experts, Old Tang did not feel afraid. Instead, he said, it should be enough, right? It is indeed enough. No matter how shameless you are, there should be a limit. An aged voice sounded, and another person appeared. Zichen, who was in despair, was surprised and delighted when he saw the old man. The other 3 Earth Soul stage experts were alarmed and subconsciously stopped in their tracks. This was because the person who came was the Mountain Lord of St. Talisman Mountain, the strongest St. Talisman Master on St. Talisman Mountain. The Mountain Lord of St. Talisman looked at the 3 Earth Soul Realm experts and said, there are so many of you against 4 Human Soul Realm experts. Can you still have some dignity? Even if you're used to being shameless, shouldn't you leave some dignity for St. Talisman Mountain? The 3 Earth Soul Realm experts' faces darkened. What? You want to fight in front of me? The Mountain Lord of St. Talisman raised his eyebrows and a cold light flashed in his eyes. That's because they deserve to die. Another voice sounded out, and a person suddenly appeared beside Zichun, raising his palm and striking down. Chapter 3897. The powerful pressure caused Zichun to stand motionless in his original spot. He could only watch as the palm descended. This palm could definitely kill him, even if he was in his peak state. Not only was it an attack from an Earth Soul Realm expert, but it was also the strongest Earth Soul Realm expert he had ever seen. Long Guming and the others did not react at all. Like Zichun, they thought that after the Mount St. Talisman Mountain Lord appeared, all the trouble would be gone. They did not expect that there would be an Earth Soul Realm expert in the dark and even sneak an attack on Zichun. An Earth Soul Realm sneak attack? This was obviously a shameless act. Seeing that Zichun was about to die, a cold snort was suddenly heard. In the next moment, a tall old man appeared beside Zichun. He raised his palm to the sky and blocked the palm that was falling on his head. Boom! Violent energy surged, forming a terrifying airwave. Long Guming, Shanya, and Xiao were immediately pushed back by the airwave and retreated far away from the battlefield. During this time, a gentle force supported the 3 of them. Otherwise, they might have been killed by the aftershock in their current state. The dignified Mount Saint Soul Mountain Lord actually sneak attacked a Human Soul Realm expert. Do you have any shame? The Mount St. Talisman Mountain Lord's expression did not change much. He seemed to have expected this and could not help but mock. Zichun raised his head and saw that the tall old man was the Mount St. Beast Mountain Lord that he had seen before. His eyes were filled with gratitude. At the same time, he looked ahead and saw an unfamiliar old man. According to the Mount St. Talisman Mountain Lord's words, the old man should be the Mount St. Sol Mountain Lord. It was unexpected that 3 Mount St. Sol Mountain Lords would appear in today's battle. As a result, only the Mount St. Weapon Mountain Lord had not arrived among the 4 Mount St. Mountain Lords. At this moment, the Mount St. Sol Mountain Lord rushed forward again. Obviously, he wanted to kill Zichen. Oomph! The Mount St. Beast Mountain Lord snorted coldly. His figure disappeared from Zichen's side and rushed toward the Mount St. Sol Mountain Lord. However, just as the Mount St. Beast Mountain Lord disappeared, Zichen felt another murderous intent appear behind him. By the time he felt the danger, the other party was already behind him. Death was near. It was none other than the 4th Mountain Chieftain, who hailed from the Sacred Weapon Mountain. He could have easily killed Zichen, but now, he was using a soul weapon. From this, one could see the intensity of his killing intent. Sure enough, all of you are here. The Mountain Lord St. Talisman laughed instead of being surprised. In the sky, countless rays of light suddenly blossomed. A huge mirror of light appeared out of nowhere. A ray of light descended from the sky and landed on Zichen, protecting him. The Sacred Weapon Mountain Master's attack arrived, but after encountering the brilliance, it was unable to do anything. The powerful vibrations forced the Sacred Weapon Mountain Lord back. He looked up at the sky, and when he saw the mirror, he cried out, "The sage, heavenly mirror." What appeared in the sky was indeed the sage, heavenly mirror from the sacred mountain. Zichen, who was shrouded in the light, felt a surge of vitality falling from the sky. His injuries were visibly healing, and this effect was even more obvious than the recovery technique. At the same time, his depleted strength was also recovering. This surprised and delighted Zichen. On the other side, 3 more rays of light descended, enveloping Lan Guming, Shanya, and Ji and began to heal their injuries. The 2 mountain chieftains from the Sacred Weapon Mountain and the Sacred Soul Mountain chieftain looked at the sky in disbelief. Clearly, they had never imagined that the sage, heavenly mirror that guarded the sacred mountain would appear here. The other Earth Soul Realm cultivators were also shocked. Only Old Tang exclaimed, "What extravagance!" The mountain chieftains from the Sacred Soul Mountain and the Sacred Weapon Mountain chieftains' expressions changed. After exchanging a glance, they saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. Old Tang shouted, "Sacred Talisman, what is the meaning of this?" The mountain chieftain chuckled and said, "Shouldn't I be asking you and the Sacred Weapon this question? As mountain chieftains, why are you 2 not guarding the sacred mountain? Why are you here?" The Sacred Soul Mountain chieftain said coldly, "They took something they shouldn't have." The mountain chieftain said, "According to the rules of the sacred mountain, there is nothing they shouldn't have taken. The rules are set by the mountain chieftains. If we say they shouldn't have taken it, then they shouldn't have." The mountain chieftain of the Sacred Soul Mountain chieftain's attitude was still firm. The mountain chieftain of the Sacred Talisman said with a smile, "What if you are not the mountain chieftains?" The 2 mountain chieftains' expressions changed when they heard this. The mountain chieftain of the Sacred Talisman cupped his fists and bowed to the sky, saying, "Thank you." The sage, heavenly mirror released rays of strong light, which shrouded the land, accompanied by powerful energy fluctuations. When the light disappeared, all the Earth Soul Realm cultivators except Old Tang had disappeared. On this day, the 4 mountain chieftains of the sacred mountain left the mountain together. But out of the 4 of them, only 2 returned. Looking at the disappearing sage, heavenly mirror, and the others, Zichen, who had recovered from his injuries, was puzzled. Old Tang walked towards him. "Old Tang, what is going on?" Zichen asked the question in his heart. "Before leaving, I was worried that you would encounter danger along the way, so I went to the mountain chieftain of the Sacred Talisman and asked him if he could secretly escort you along the way. He said that there was no need to worry and that everything was within his expectations." Old Tang sighed and said, "I just didn't expect them to make such an arrangement. This is too generous." Zichen was still puzzled. Shanya and the other 2 also walked over. With the help of the sage, heavenly mirror, the 3 of them had recovered to their best condition. However, their clothes were torn in many places. Without the blood stains, they were truly exposed. If I'm not wrong, the mountain chieftain of the sacred mountain may be replaced, Old Tang said. The mountain chieftain will be replaced? That's impossible. Every mountain chieftain of the sacred mountain is invincible. There is no power in the world that can kill them, not even the sage heavenly mirror, Shou said. As a person from this area, she naturally knew about the sacred mountain. That's true, but it's only limited to the sacred mountain. With the power of the sacred mountain, every mountain chieftain is invincible on their own mountain. However, once they leave the sacred mountain, without the protection of the sacred mountain, their combat strength will be reduced by at least half. Even if their strength was reduced by more than half, they could still easily kill Zichen. They were even stronger than ordinary earthly souls. After all, they were all mountain chieftains. How can this be? Zichen still couldn't believe it. Let's go. What happens next is a family matter of the sacred mountain. It has nothing to do with us, Old Tang said faintly. Old Tang said faintly. Actually, there was another question in his heart. Did the mountain lord of Mount Sage Talisman purposely use Zichen as bait to lure the other two mountain lords out bit by bit? The two mountain chieftains of the sacred weapon and sacred soul would never have thought that the mountain chieftains of the sacred beast and sacred soul, who had always ignored worldly matters, would want to kill them. Chapter 3898. The spectators at the back didn't know what had happened. When the sage heavenly mirror appeared, there was a mysterious energy that blocked their vision and aura, so no one could see what had happened. Zichen glanced at the corpses on the ground. Some of them were still bleeding. Noah wasn't next to him, and Peng Chong wasn't there either. The job of cleaning up the battlefield was naturally left to Zichen. Even the weakest cultivators here were in the human soul realm. Zichen plundered the place and obtained a lot of good things, including many Saint Soul weapons from Saint Weapon Mountain. He believed that once they reached Fong Lin City, they would be able to sell them for a very good price. After cleaning up the battlefield, Zichen looked at the corpses on the ground and stomped his foot. The ground collapsed and thick smoke billowed. Those who had been killed by them were all buried in the ground. After that, Zichen's group of 5 returned to the team. However, those who were originally in the team subconsciously retreated. Obviously, they didn't dare to get close to Zichen. Just looking at the experts who had died in this battle was enough to make people tremble in fear. In fact, Zichen could have just left, but there were still many goods in the team. Since the leader Guatao was dead, Zichen was obligated to help them and escort them to their destination. After this battle, all their troubles had been resolved. He believed that the future would be smooth sailing. With Zichen's group in front, Old Tang no longer hid his tracks. The group set off for Fonglin City. After a short rest, Zichen looked at Old Tang across the bonfire and asked, "Aren't the 4 mountain lords the strongest on the sacred mountain? Why are there conflicts between them, to the point of scheming against each other and killing each other?" Shanya and the others also looked at Old Tang. They had the same doubts as Zichen. Old Tang sat there and pondered for a moment before saying, "To be precise, the leaders of the sacred talisman and the sacred beast wanted to kill." Why? Zichen asked again. In his impression, the leader of the sacred talisman mountain was very kind. He shouldn't be the kind of person who would scheme, let alone kill the innocent. Furthermore, killing a mountain lord was no small matter. Old Tang raised his head and quickly glanced at them. Zichen had a feeling that Old Tang was deliberately looking at Lan Gumeng. Could this matter be related to Lan Gumeng? This should be related to the current situation of the sacred mountain. The 2 mountain masters of the sacred beast and sacred talisman are extremely ancient existences, but they rarely care about the secular world. Everything is managed by the 2 mountain masters of the sacred mountain, sacred weapon, and sacred soul. Old Tang said, during this period of time, it is inevitable that there will be disagreements because of the amount of resources. However, these are only small conflicts and are not worth mentioning. However, in recent years, the 2 sacred mountains have clearly become arrogant and have done many outrageous things. Among them, the most influential one was the change of ownership of the O clan's Sacred Mountain Gambling House more than 100 years ago. Sacred Mountain Gambling House, O family? Zichen's expression changed. In that case, Oli didn't lie. He really is the young master of the Sacred Mountain Gambling House? Shanya and Lan Guming's expressions also changed. At that time, when Oli talked about this matter, they all took it as a joke. Old Tang nodded. That's right. Oli was indeed the young master of the gambling house. However, in the battle between Oli and Sacred Radiance, Oli lost to Sacred Radiance. At that time, Oli also lost the Sacred Mountain Gambling House. Although Oli later told me that there were other secrets to this battle, his defeat was already a fact. After that battle, the Sacred Mountain Gambling House should have been managed by Sacred Radiance. However, at the crucial moment, the Sacred Beast Mountain Lord suddenly came out of seclusion and dealt with this matter. In the end, the O clan lost the gambling house, but Sacred Radiance didn't completely get it. Even so, it shouldn't be to the extent of killing each other, right? It was just a small dispute of interest. Moreover, it had nothing to do with the Mountain Lord. How could it develop to such an extent? Zichen asked again. Old Tang said, perhaps it's because of the unity within the Sacred Mountain. If I'm not wrong this time, the Sacred Soul and Sacred Weapon Mountains will appoint new mountain masters. At that time, the 4 mountains will be completely unified. At that time, the strongest Sacred Mountain will be able to unite against outsiders. Zichen looked at Old Tang and said in disbelief, Old Tang, are you sure there is an enemy that requires the 4 mountains to work together to deal with? The Sacred Mountain was extremely powerful and had honorary elders all over the world. Zichen didn't believe that any power would dare to have any ideas about the Sacred Mountain. This is hard to say. However, since the Sacred Heavenly Mirror is willing to leave the Sacred Mountain to deal with this matter, it must be extremely important. Old Tang thought for a moment and said, do you know why the Sacred Mountain can send so many human soul realm experts? Zichen shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Because of the Mirror Spirit, even if they die in battle outside, the Mirror Spirit can still revive them, as long as they pay a certain price. But this time, it seems that they have miscalculated. Even the Mountain Master is gone, so it is impossible for them to be revived. I guess those people have been kept in the dark and don't know anything. If they die, they will die for real. Lan Guming, who was listening to Old Tang, suddenly said, when the Sacred Heavenly Mirror appeared, I vaguely felt that I could control it. What? Hearing this, everyone looked at Lan Guming. To be honest, Zichen didn't have a good impression of the Sacred Heavenly Mirror. This was because it had no rules at all, and always did things its own way. If it hadn't healed his injuries and helped him for free, his impression of the Sacred Heavenly Mirror would have been even worse. However, it was undeniable that the Sacred Heavenly Mirror was extraordinary and powerful. Lan Guming could control the Sacred Heavenly Mirror? The Sacred Heavenly Mirror has its own consciousness. It can't be controlled by anyone. Maybe Sister was in a trance when she was severely injured, Shior said at this moment. Lan Guming nodded. Apparently, she also thought that this was a possibility. After all, the feeling in her heart at that time wasn't that strong. Old Tang, on the other hand, didn't comment on the situation. In his spare time, Zichen would comprehend spells. At present, he still had several spells that he had yet to comprehend. Among them, there were 2 that were the most powerful. One was the Sacred Talisman spell that could summon the Sacred Mountain Battle Spirit, and the other was a more advanced combat skill. When he returned from the assessment, Zichen had proposed to give this spell to Oli, but Oli had rejected him. These 2 spells were extremely difficult to comprehend. Even at his current level, Zichen still couldn't figure out a way to comprehend them after several days of meditation. Everything was just as Zichen had guessed. There was almost no danger on the road ahead. Occasionally, there would be some ignorant people, but they were just small problems that could be easily dealt with. The people in that team were still far behind Zichen. As long as Zichen stopped, they would stop as well. With Zichen guarding the road ahead, there would be no trouble. Along the way, Zichen and the others would temporarily stay in towns and cities. At the same time, they would see if other people wanted to buy something. However, as they moved forward, Zichen found that the road ahead was getting more and more lively. There were also more and more teams that they encountered. During this time, the things that everyone talked about the most were the grand event of the successor selection held in Fenglin City. There were occasional discussions about the change of the Sacred Mountain, but there were no valuable clues or information. As for whether the Mountain Master would change, no one talked about it. Shijio was born and raised in this area, so she was very clear about the division of some forces. When the major forces fought openly and secretly, there would also be business between the two sides. She looked at Zichun and said, "If you want to talk about the most famous members of the Fong family, there are a total of 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman. You've already met Fong Wulian, but his fame has nothing to do with his strength. He's a spoiled brat that everyone hates. It's said that he's not liked in the entire Fong family. If it weren't for his high status and good brother, he would have been killed countless times." Zichun had his own judgment of Fong Wulian. Zichun did not comment on what kind of person he was. He only believed in his own eyes. Shijio continued, "The second one is Fong Wudao, the brother of that spoiled brat. His great fame was built bit by bit. He has the title of the strongest human soul in the Fong family." "Is it just the Fong family?" Lan Guming asked. Shijio said, "Sister, you might not know, but the people of the Fong family have always been proud. They don't even take the people of the sacred mountain seriously. Moreover, the direct descendants of the Fong family all have magic spirit robes that can attack and defend. The Fong family thinks that the family is the strongest, but it actually means the strongest in the world." Zichun said, "The strongest in the Fong family is the strongest in the world. They sure talk big." Shiju said, "That Fong Wudao has too many brilliant achievements. It's normal for him to fight above his level. He has long been the successor of the Fong family. I just don't know why the Fong family is choosing a new successor this time. However, I think it's just a process." "What about the last one?" Zichun asked. "The last one is called Fong Wuling. She's not as famous as Fong Wudao, but in some famous families, she has an extremely high evaluation. Her combat strength might not be as good as Fong Wudao's, but she's better in terms of intelligence and is extremely difficult to deal with. Most importantly, she's Fong Wudao's younger sister." Zichun said, "Fong Wudao's younger sister, and Fong Wulian is Fong Wudao's younger brother. Doesn't that mean that Fong Wulian and Fong Wuling are close relatives?" "They're close relatives, yes. To be precise, Fong Wulian is Fong Wuling's older brother. However, the relationship between the siblings is extremely bad. It's said that they don't recognize each other. However, the two of them are very close to Fong Wudao." Shiju looked at Zichun and asked, "This time, the Fong family is flourishing. Are you really going to help that spoiled brat Fong Wulian?" Zichun nodded. This was what he had promised the other party. "Just for the rewards he promised you? If that's the case, I suggest you look for Fong Wudao. Whether it's reputation or character, he's much better than Fong Wulian." Shiju said, "Moreover, with the resources that Fong Wudao has, he's definitely much better than Fong Wulian." Zichun shook his head. Other than the rewards mentioned before, helping Fong Wulian this time was mainly to return the favor. This was the main reason. They arrived at Fonglin City. P.S. I caught a cold. It's very uncomfortable. That's all for today. Chapter 3899. Fonglin City was the headquarters of the Fong clan. The Fong clan started in this place, and later on, they built this city. The first time he saw Fonglin City, this famous city left a deep impression on Zichun. This was because the walls of this city were not made of hard and immortal stone, but thick green bamboos. At a glance, it was emerald green. There was still a distance from the city, but a faint bamboo fragrance wafted over. The bamboo fragrance that was inhaled seemed to contain a trace of pure soul power. Zichun's expression changed. He looked to the side and found that Lan Guming and Shanya had also made the same discovery. These green bamboos are clear spirit bamboos. They have the effect of condensing the soul. It is said that the Fong clan started out by selling a kind of iron tree that could be refined into weapons. After inadvertently obtaining a refining technique, they rose to power. Xiao looked at the rows of clear spirit bamboos in front and explained, "The bamboos outside are considered ordinary compared to the Fong clans. The real good stuff is in the Fong clan. It is said that the Fong clan controls a small world called the Bamboo Sea. There are all kinds of amazing bamboos inside, and these clear spirit bamboos were transplanted from that small world. That small world is also the foundation of the Fong clan. Outsiders are forbidden to enter, and in the Fong clan, only the direct descendants are qualified to enter." The further they went, the stronger the bamboo fragrance and the more soul power it contained. They had not even entered the city yet, so what kind of scene would it be? Although the people of the Fong clan are all arrogant, I have to say that they have the capital to be arrogant. No one dares to provoke that second generation no matter where he goes. There are even many people who want to curry favor with him. This is somewhat reasonable. There were guards at the city gate, but they were only there to maintain order and did not charge extra. After entering the city, Xiao continued, "Every building here is expensive, and the closer to the Fong clan, the higher the price. It can be said to be sky-high. Among them, the Fong clan specially divided a part of the buildings for the experts they recruited to live in free of charge." Carefully sensing the soul power contained in this city, Zichun could not help but sigh at the Fong clan's wealth. This scene was similar to his world. It was just that the ancient trees in his world were of a much lower grade than the bamboos here. This time, Zichun had truly broadened his horizons. Staying here, even on the streets, could still make people feel relaxed and happy. After entering the city, Shiju looked at Zichun. "Do you want to find a place to stay at the Undrunk restaurant?" Zichun said, "That's not necessary. Let's find a place to eat first." According to Fong Wulian's information, he should have known about this when they entered the city, so if the other party really wanted to, he would have come looking for them himself. Shiju said, "Then let's go to the Undrunk Tavern." Zichun had no objections to this because he could also tell Shiju's family that he was safe. The Undrunk restaurant had branches in some big cities, so their business was naturally very good. After Zichun and his group came in, they directly asked for a private room. Originally, there was no such room, but after Shiju introduced herself, there was naturally one. After eating, they found a nearby inn to stay. They did not stay at the Undrunk restaurant. It was unknown whether it was because of this golden age or some other reason, but the cost of accommodation was extremely high. Fortunately, the soul power in the room was denser, so it was worth the price. That night, Shan Kuei came looking for them, but Fong Wulian did not appear. Shan Kuei came here and only sent Zichun an invitation, indicating that Zichun should go to the Undrunk restaurant tomorrow. Fong Wulian rented an entire floor there and was going to hold a party tomorrow. After Shan Kuei left, the others came to Zichun's room. After learning about this, Shiju said unhappily, "This Fong Wulian is too arrogant. He didn't come in person. You have to know that we went through a lot to get here." Zichun shook his head and said, "This is actually quite good. At least we won't be the target of public criticism." It was obvious that Fong Wulian had found a lot of helpers this time. After all, this matter was of great importance, and it was impossible for the other party to trust someone they had only met once or twice. If it were Zichun, it would be the same. The necessary vigilance was still necessary. Zichun looked at the three girls. Shiju seemed to have guessed his thoughts and immediately said, "If you want to go, you go by yourself. The three of us will definitely not go. There are a lot of good things in Fonglan City. Tomorrow, the two sisters and I will go shopping. Maybe we can find something good." "That's good." Zichun knew that the three of them had a very bad impression of Fong Wulian, so he did not say anything. Old Tang sat next to him and did not say anything. The next day, when the sun was high up in the sky, Zichun took the invitation and went to the Undrunk restaurant. The Undrunk restaurant had its own internal area to entertain people of high status. It also had an external area that could be rented as long as one had enough blue crystal coins. After taking out the invitation, someone naturally led Zichun there. After a few months, Zichun saw Fong Wulian again. The other party was sitting on a wide chair with his legs crossed, watching the dancers with a wicked smile on his face. Shan Kuei stood behind him like an iron tower, like the most loyal guard. In addition to the two of them, there were more than a dozen people sitting in other places, all of them discussing something. As soon as Zichun came in, Fong Wulian saw him. He immediately stood up and waved at the dancers. "Young ladies, you're all dancing well. Now that the young master has an important guest, you can dance in my room tonight." As he said that, his eyes fiercely glared at those wonderful places. The dancers retreated one by one, but when they left the room, they all looked at Zichun curiously. "Everyone, let me introduce you. This is the famous Zichun. Back then, he created a huge miracle on the sacred mountain. He is also a good friend of mine, Fong Wulian." Fong Wulian stepped forward, took Ziqin's hand, and introduced him to everyone. However, what he received in return was not a smiling face, but some cold faces. So it's you. You've delayed us for a long time. Otherwise, this party would have started long ago. A thin man snorted coldly. Ziqin. His name is Wangzhe. Although what he said is not pleasant to hear, it's the truth. They came early, but you didn't come. I delayed the party again and again until today, Fong Wulian explained. Ziqin hurriedly cupped his fist and said apologetically, "Everyone, I'm sorry. Something happened on the way here, that's why we were delayed." Seeing that Ziqin's attitude was sincere, the surrounding unfriendly gazes receded a little. Wangzhe snorted and did not say anything. Chapter 3900. Fong Wulian's words caused many people's expressions to change. The location of the examination was the Bamboo Sea World. One had to know that it was the foundation of the Fong clan, and also their greatest secret. Outsiders could not go there, and even many of the Fong clan members could not go there. Only the direct descendants, the true direct descendants, had the qualifications to come in contact with it. Ziqin's expression also changed. Before coming here, he had heard of the Bamboo Sea World. It was definitely the Fong clan's greatest secret. Everyone did not hear wrong. This time, the Bamboo Sea World is indeed my Fong clan's Bamboo Sea World. However, there are not only opportunities there, but also great dangers. Therefore, I need a strong person to be the leader and lead everyone. Fong Wulian pointed at Ziqin and said proudly, "Ziqin is the best candidate. I believe in his strength. I also believe in my unique vision. If I say he can do it, then he can do it. If he can't, then he can." Once these words were spoken, the previously restrained, unfriendly gazes once again stared at Ziqin. This time, everyone's eyes became even colder. Ziqin's reputation was great, but it was only limited to the Sagely Mountain City. During the examination, this was Fonglin City, and many people belonged to the local forces. Therefore, not many people knew about Ziqin. Second young master, what are the benefits of being the leader? The person called Wangzhe asked again. Fong Wulian said proudly, "Of course there are many benefits following me, let alone being the leader. All of you better wash your ears and listen carefully. The benefit of being the leader is that after everyone enters, they must listen to the leader's orders. Whoever dares to disobey will be killed immediately. In addition, no matter if you succeed or fail, you will receive a magic spiritual robe from me." Looking at everyone's changing expressions, Fong Wulian said in a serious tone, "The magic spiritual robe is of a high grade, the kind that is not sold to the public. My products are all of the best quality." Once these words were spoken, everyone's eyes flashed, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. If that was the case, the benefits of being the leader were too great. For a moment, everyone cast provocative gazes at Ziqin. Wangzhe continued, "If that's the case, then I'm not convinced that Ziqin is the captain." "That's right, we're not convinced either." The others also chimed in one after another. No one was willing to let such a huge benefit fall into someone else's hands. Ziqin remained silent. He didn't say anything, nor did he express any opinion on whether or not he should be the team leader. If you feel that this arrangement is inappropriate, you can raise objections or issue a challenge. After all, only the strongest person is qualified to become the captain, and only then will everyone be convinced. The smile on Fong Wulian's face did not diminish, and he was very proud of himself. Ziqin, who had been expressionless all this while, frowned slightly. He could no longer see through Fong Wulian's true thoughts. Fong Wulian sat down again and crossed his legs, saying, "This is how this young master does things. As long as you have enough strength, feel free to challenge me. This young master has plenty of resources, but I'm just afraid that you're not strong enough." As soon as he said this, everyone became even more confident. Wangzhe said again, "Ziqin, do you dare to accept my challenge?" Ziqin, who was sitting to the side, slowly shook his head and said, "I don't accept the challenge, and I don't want to be the team leader." When everyone heard this, they were stunned. They didn't expect Ziqin to give such a reply. Even Fong Wulian's expression changed. He looked at Ziqin and said, "Ziqin, you don't have to be polite with them. I think very highly of you. and the position of team leader is yours. You will definitely beat these arrogant fools until they are convinced. Fang Wulian's words made everyone feel uncomfortable, but they didn't dare to get angry at Fang Wulian. They could only stare coldly at Zichun. Zichun, second young master thinks very highly of you. Do you dare to fight with me? Wangzhe provoked again. Second young master thinks so highly of your strength. Don't you want to show your strength? Zichun was still unmoved. He glanced at Wangzhe and said, since you want to be the team leader so much, this position is yours. After saying this, Zichun stood up and said, get someone to inform me when we are leaving. I will listen to the new team leader's arrangements. The smile on Fang Wulian's face disappeared, and even Shan Kuei was stunned. In his opinion, this was clearly the young master's good intentions. It was only a friendly match, and he believed that with Zichun's strength, he would be able to easily win and obtain a magic robe. Why wouldn't he be happy? However, Zichun rejected without even thinking. Fang Wulian, this is the team leader you think so highly of. He doesn't even dare to accept a challenge. Isn't he too cowardly? At this moment, a sarcastic female voice came from outside the door. A beautiful woman in green with a slender waist pushed open the door and entered. Seeing the woman, Fang Wulian's eyes flashed. He immediately stood up and said, Sister, why are you here? Fang Wulian, watch your words. I am not your sister. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will cut off your tongue. Fang Wulian patted his face lightly and said flatteringly, look at my mouth. It's only for a moment. Wuling, why are you suddenly here? Shiju said that there were 3 famous people in the Fang family. One of them was called Fang Wuling. Could it be her? Zichun looked at the woman in green. When Fang Wuling saw how Fang Wulian was fawning over her, she couldn't help but sneer. I heard that you held a big banquet here and recruited many experts. I came here to see what kind of trash you are. I didn't expect to be so disappointed. Fang Wulian laughed and said, I am just making a small fuss. The family gave me a chance. I can't waste the family's good intentions, right? Wuling, don't be offended. Fang Wuling said, offended? How is that possible? You are the son of a lowly servant. Are you worthy? To be honest, a shameless guy like you shouldn't be qualified. I am not interested in you or your people. That's right. Wuling, you are right. Fang Wulian was not angry at such deliberate ridicule. Instead, he nodded repeatedly. This made many people look at him strangely. This second generation was like a completely different person from before. In front of Fang Wuling, he was like a dog. There was no trace of his previous arrogance. Fang Wuling no longer paid any attention to Fang Wulian. Instead, she looked at Zichun and said, I came here today to see you. Are you really Zichun? Zichun nodded and said, that's me. Fang Wuling said, I couldn't tell. Zichun, who can mess up the sacred mountain, is actually so timid. He doesn't even dare to challenge me? I really wonder if you are a fake. Zichun smiled and said, that's possible. Fang Wuling looked at Zichun from head to toe. She blinked and said, why don't you be my team leader? I'll pay you double the reward that Fang Wulian gave you. Chapter 3901. Hearing Zichun's words, everyone's expression changed. Their gazes became strange. Fang Wulian had said that regardless of the outcome, the team leader would get a magic spirit robe, but Zichun had said 5 robes. If the price was doubled, it would be 10 robes. How dare he say such an exorbitant price? You believe Fang Wulian's words? Fang Wuling laughed sarcastically. Even if he is willing to give it, he has to have it. 1 magic spirit robe is already the limit of what he can afford. It also depends on my mood. I'll give you 3 magic spirit robes. Come with me. When the others heard this, their eyes almost popped out. Wasn't this business too shrewd? She had tripled the price just by raising it. Zichun smiled and shook his head. 3 robes isn't enough for everyone. Forget it. He actually rejected it. Everyone felt their minds were in a mess. Did they meet an idiot? Fang Wuling extended her hand and said, 5 robes then. I'll give you 5 magic spirit robes. Come with me this time. Zichun still shook his head and did not agree. Fang Wuling glanced at Fang Wulian, who was smiling in an attempt to curry favor, and immediately said with a straight face, Zichun, How can you be so unappreciative? Wuling has invited you. This is a great honor for you. Why don't you accept? Fong Wuling waved her hand and said, Forget it. The person you find is probably the same as you. He's not presentable. I dare to give him 5 magic spirit robes. Does he have the guts to take them? With that, Fong Wuling turned and left. Fong Wulian followed behind her and sent her to the door. Only then did everyone come back to their senses. So she was just toying with him. But seeing him in person was better than hearing about him. This time, they met Fong Wuling and naturally knew Fong Wulian's true status in the Fong family. If not for sucking up to his brother and sister, how could he be so famous? Now, they even began to doubt if Fong Wulian could take out a magic spirit robe. Fong Wulian walked back without a trace of displeasure on his face. It was as if he was already used to this kind of thing and didn't feel that losing face in front of others was a shameful thing. He looked at them and said, Do you still want to challenge me? They looked at each other in dismay. After what had happened, they had to think carefully for their own sake. After a slight hesitation, everyone shook their heads, indicating that they would not challenge him. Moreover, there were a few people who directly bid farewell and left. Zichun sat at the side in silence, but he kept an eye on everyone. When people left, there would naturally be people who stayed. No matter where one was, there would never be a lack of smart people. Zichun didn't stay for too long, nor did he have a heart-to-heart talk with Fong Wulian. Through today's conversation, he had a very pessimistic attitude towards the following journey. Fong Wulian did not continue to urge Zichun to stay. After Fong Wuling's incident, the party that he had spent a lot of blue crystal coins to hold was completely ruined. To put it simply, he had suffered a double loss after trying to persuade Zichun. After returning to his residence, Zichun went to find Old Tang and told him what happened today. Are you sure that the Fong family opened the Bamboo Sea World? Old Tang was obviously very surprised because everyone knew that the Bamboo Sea World was the biggest secret of the Fong family. How could such a secret be open to the public? Moreover, there seemed to be no limit to the number of people who could enter. Zichun nodded. He believed that Fong Wulian wouldn't joke about this kind of thing. No matter what the final result is, there will be a magic spirit robe as the reward. This is a big deal. Either he is deliberately trying to befriend you, or he is plotting something. Old Tang said, I think so too. Fong Wuling was willing to give me 5 magic spirit robes. Although it was a big joke, it could also mean that even if he promised to give you these things, it depends on whether you are alive to receive them. Zichun also said. Old Tang looked at Zichun. What are you worried about? That there are dangers inside? Zichun shook his head and said, This is only one part of it, but not all. I am worried that I won't be able to return alive. Since it was the place where the Fong family started, there would naturally be many secrets inside. There might even be opportunities. Even if there were benefits inside, how could he guarantee that he would be able to return alive? This was what Zichun was most worried about. Old Tang pondered for a moment and said, This is not easy to decide. We need more information. Zichun said, Thank you. Old Tang asked again, What if I ask you to give up? Zichun hesitated for a moment and said, This is a promise that I cannot refuse. However, if it really involves my life, I will refuse. Obviously, Zichun was not an inflexible person. He was still flexible when it came to things. Just as Old Tang was gathering information and Zichun was hesitating, the other direct descendants of the Fong clan began to recruit troops and buy horses. As expected, the news of the Bamboo Sea World being open to the outside world was leaked. For a moment, it caused a huge commotion in Fonglan City. Many forces were beginning to get restless. However, there were too many people who signed up, so the direct descendants of the Fong family had to limit the number of people they could bring. 100. Each person could only bring 100 human soul realm experts, and the human soul realm was the highest level allowed in the Bamboo Sea World. Of course, they could also bring soul emptiness and soul realm experts, but no one would do that. In the past few days, the city had become very crazy. Even the entire Fong family had become crazy. Those who were not qualified to become direct descendants were all thinking of ways to become direct descendants. They were not fighting for the position of successor, but for the great opportunities in the Bamboo Sea World. Obviously, even the Fong family had become unstable. The entire Fonglan city seemed to have become crazy, and Zichun became more and more uneasy. He called the three of them together and said directly, "This time, the three of you will stay in Fonglin City and wait for me to return." "Why? This opportunity is very rare," Xiao'er asked doubtfully. Longu Meng and Shanya did not have any doubts. Zichen's intentions were all for their own good, and this time would be no exception. "I'm very uneasy. I keep feeling that things are not so simple," Zichun said. Xiao'er said, "The Fong family opening the Bamboo Sea World is already unusual, but there are too many forces going in this time. Even if the Fong family has evil intentions, they wouldn't dare to attack all the forces, right? They don't have the guts and strength to do so." Zichun shook his head and said, "I still insist on my thoughts. Perhaps in the end, I will stay." This made Xiao'er even more surprised. When others saw an opportunity, they would crazily fight for it. But Zichun actually made people avoid it. Just as the situation was in a deadlock, a secret letter was sent to the inn. It was personally opened by Xiao'er. Only Xiao'er could open it. After reading the contents of the secret letter, Xiao'er's expression could not help but change. Then, when she looked at Zichun, there was a strange look in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Zichun looked at Xiao'er and said, "Is it that your family also doesn't agree to this? Take a look for yourself." Xiao'er handed over the secret letter. Zichun poured his soul power into it and saw a soul remembrance left behind. Chapter 3902. Hearing that old voice, Zichun was stunned and couldn't believe his ears. He looked at Shiju and asked, "Do you know who he is?" Shiju nodded. "Of course I do." Zichun asked again, "Then did he say something wrong and tell you not to go to the Bamboo Sea World?" Shiju didn't answer and asked back, "What do you think?" Zichun was speechless. Other people would avoid danger as much as they could, but this family was different. They were rushing to deliver themselves to their doorstep. Shiju continued, "You don't have any objections now, right?" Zichun nodded helplessly. The other party's words not only decided Shiju's direction, but also his. Now he couldn't refuse even if he wanted to. At this time, Old Tang's voice sounded in Zichun's mind. "As long as you can come out, no one can hurt you." The silent Zichun nodded and felt more confident. Then he looked at Lan Guming and Shanya. "In that case, the four of us will go together." The two naturally didn't have any objections. Fonglin City, Fong Wulian had his own courtyard in the Fong family's huge courtyard. The soul power here was extremely abundant. Although it couldn't be ranked in the top 5 in the entire Fong family, it was still in the top 20. It was enough to see his status in the Fong family. However, this was only on the surface. The truth was that over the years, his courtyard had been coveted by one direct descendant after another. He had already changed 3 times. Shan Kuei came to the door and knocked. "Come in." In the room, Fong Wulian raised his eyelids and said indifferently. Shan Kuei pushed the door open and entered, then carefully closed the door. Fong Wulian leaned his chin on the table and was in a daze. "Young master, something seems wrong," Shan Kuei said cautiously. "What?" Fong Wulian said weakly. "The others seem to have gone crazy these days, constantly recruiting people. The original few successors have increased by half this time. There must be something wrong." Shan Kuei said in a deep voice, "How can the family allow so many outsiders to enter the Bamboo Sea World? You have to know, that is a place that young master has never been. If you can see that something is wrong, then even a fool can see it." Fong Wulian was still weak. "I don't know what exactly happened. With my connections in the family, no one will tell me." Shan Kuei said, "The first young master and the third young lady must know." Fong Wulian said, "So what? Do you want me to play the fool in front of them again? And then be humiliated in public?" Thinking of the countless scenes that had happened before, Shan Kuei did not say anything more. "How's Zichun doing? Did you come into contact with anyone else?" Fong Wulian suddenly asked. Shan Kuei shook his head and said, "No, he has been staying in the inn and rarely goes out. I haven't found him contacting anyone." Fong Wulian said in bewilderment, "That shouldn't be the case. Others are ignorant and don't know how strong Zichun is, but Fong Wuling knows very well. Just one Zichun is enough to turn the sacred mountain into a mess. There are even rumors that the change of the 2 mountain masters is related to him. How could she not get in touch with such an important person? How could she not try to recruit him? Shankui scratched his head and said, maybe she's already recruited enough experts and they haven't seen Zichen's true strength? That's why she ignored him. Fong Wulian sat up and said, impossible. Then she thinks that if word gets out that she stole the young master's woman, people will laugh at her? Shankui asked again. Fong Wulian's lips suddenly curved into a mocking smile. That's even more impossible. Others don't understand that bitch, but I do. Faces nothing in her eyes. If someone wants to help her and wants her body, she will offer it without hesitation. Shankui tactfully did not reply. At the same time, he carefully looked around the room. After seeing the talisman papers that were still glowing, he relaxed. The walls might have ears. Fong Wulian pondered for a moment, then slapped the table and said, this matter is indeed strange. Go and tell Zichun that this trip might be extremely dangerous and that he should be careful. We're warning him out of kindness. What if Zichun takes the opportunity to increase the price? Shankui was somewhat worried. Tell him to wait until we enter the Bamboo Sea world. Yes. Outside Fonglan City, two figures flew across the sky. One was wearing a Taoist robe. He was obviously a Taoist with white hair and a youthful face. The other was wearing a black robe and was very old. The Taoist looked at the city below and said, we're already here. Don't you want to see your granddaughter? The old man in the black robe said, no, let her be. After flying past Fonglan City, the Taoist said, old Shun, tell me the truth. Can Shiju really be safe this time? Let me tell you, I can give up the great foundation of the Sea family, but I can't let Shiju be in danger. The Taoist-robed old Shun said, don't worry. The old man in the black robe said, don't worry. You always tell me not to worry, but how can I not worry? Last time, when we went to the Holy Mountain, it was you who showed us the way, but what happened? Even under our eyes, we almost let the rascals get away with it. The Taoist said, you're talking about the result that didn't happen. The real result was that she was safe and even entered the 4th level of the Holy Mountain and obtained a technique. Although that's the case, the Bamboo Sea world of the Fong family is too mysterious. Even you and I don't dare to go there, let alone them. Moreover, the Fong family is so generous this time. There must be a trap. Hearing the worry in the old man's words, the Taoist stopped teasing him and said seriously, with the Sea family's change, Shiju is not safe anywhere in the Bamboo Sea world. Although I can't see it clearly and don't dare to say much, I can tell you that Shiju's trip this time will be with the help of the heavens. The heavens are helping? You're talking about Zichun. I admit that he's stronger than ordinary people, but you're comparing a descender to the heavens. Isn't that a bit ridiculous? The Taoist said, the heavens are mysterious and unfathomable. How can you and I see through it? Since we've already made this choice, we can only wait and see. After sending Shankui away, Zichun fell into deep thought again. Even Fong Wulian didn't know what was going on, so what was the Fong family doing this time? On the 2nd day, people came to visit one after another. They were all people from the Fong family, and they were all people who had obtained a direct descendant quota. However, Zichun didn't see any of them because it was meaningless. During this time, Fong Wulian didn't send anyone else. On the 5th day, Shankui came again. After saying a few words of praise, he also told Zichun that everyone would enter the Bamboo Sea world in 3 days and told him to be prepared. At the same time, Shankui also formally asked Zichun how many people there were. The answer was naturally 4. Shankui patted his chest and told him that the quota wasn't a problem. Chapter 3903. It was already the appointed time. All the people in the city who were qualified to participate in this event had left their residences and were heading towards the Fong clan. Since they were heading towards the Fong clan's Bamboo Sea world, the entrance was naturally within the Fong clan. However, everyone was stopped outside the Fong clan's main gate. Everyone was gathered in a temporarily built square, and it was crowded with people. Noises constantly rang out, and all kinds of people were calling out to their friends. It was as if they had arrived at a lively market. Zichun, over here. Zichun heard Shankui's voice. The other party was standing at a high point, and he kept waving at Zichun. He seemed to be a little excited. Zichun and the other three walked towards Shankue. This time, Old Tang did not follow them. Along the way, many people looked at them, but most of them were looking at the three girls with outstanding temperaments. Zichun, who was extremely famous in the Sagely Mountain City, did not stand out here. After the last gathering, Zichun saw Feng Wulian again. The seat that Feng Wulian occupied was definitely the best one. In the entire Feng clan, there was almost no direct descendant who liked Feng Wulian. However, to outsiders, everyone had to give some face to this second-generation ancestor. After all, his brother and sister were extraordinary existences in the Feng clan. Even if the two sides did not get along, they still had to give some face. However, compared to the advantageous positions, the people that Feng Wulian had recruited this time were not very good. Although all of them were at the human soul stage, from the aura that flowed around them, most of them were existences that were not worth mentioning. Even if a large group of people at this level came, they could not threaten Zichun. After Feng Wulian saw Zichun, a sincere smile immediately appeared on his face. He quickly walked forward and put his arm around Zichun's shoulder in a familiar manner. "My captain, great leader, you're finally here." Zichun smiled and allowed the other party to put his arm around his shoulder. He did not care about giving others the impression that the two of them had a very good relationship. However, Xiao who was behind him, snorted and did not give Feng Wulian a good look. "Little girl, you're here too?" Feng Wulian naturally didn't forget to tease Shijiao. However, he knew that she had a big Missy's temper, so he knew when to stop. Feng Wulian and Zichun went to a high place. Zichun pointed to the crowd below and said, "These are my men. What do you think? They're all elites, right?" Zichun's gaze swept across the crowd. During this time, many pairs of eyes met with him. They did not give in at all, and there was obvious provocation in their eyes. It was as if these people were really elites and did not want to submit to Zichun, their leader. Zichun said expressionlessly, "Yes, all of them are elites. It's not easy to find so many elites at once." Zichun's tone was so calm that Feng Wulian couldn't tell if he was being sincere or just mocking him. He laughed and said, "If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, as the captain, to lead them well and strive for great gains for everyone." The smile on his face faded. Feng Wulian looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, this is the Zichun I mentioned to you before. From now on, Zichun will be your captain. When you enter the Bamboo Sea world, all of your actions will be under his command." The provocative gazes did not disappear. There were even people who were eager to challenge Zichun on the spot. The reward for being the captain was too generous. No one was willing to give it up. "After we enter, if anyone dares to disobey Zichun's orders, then don't blame me for being rude." Feng Wulian's voice suddenly turned cold. Those provocative gazes also retracted a little. Zichun looked into the distance. The teams separated from each other. He estimated that there were about 30 teams. Each team had 200 people. There were nearly 30 teams. The number of people added up this time was comparable to the number of people in the Sacred Mountains assessment. After all, there were still many Soul Realm experts in the Sacred Mountains assessment at that time. Among these teams, the strong and the weak could be clearly distinguished. For example, the two teams beside Zichun. Everyone stood upright and silent, like well-trained soldiers. Moreover, the auras surging around them were also very strong. One look, and one could tell that they were elites. Feng Wulian's team was clearly a loose soldier, and the kind that couldn't be shown in public. "Where's the entrance?" The surroundings were still unable to quiet down because of the problem of people. Zichun took the opportunity to ask Feng Wulian. Feng Wulian shook his head and said, "To be honest, I'm not sure either. I was actually quite surprised to open the Bamboo Sea world this time. What I know is not much different from what you know." Zichun looked at Feng Wulian, clearly not believing him. Feng Wulian lowered his voice and said, "I have no need to lie to you. I only have this one chance left. I have to seize it. You are my only hope. Of course I will tell you everything I know." This kind of noisy situation lasted for a full hour before it ended. A tyrannical aura belonging to the Earth's soul realm suddenly appeared in the sky. This caused everyone's gaze to subconsciously look towards the sky. The scene gradually quieted down. It's rare for everyone to be able to participate in my Fong clan's prosperity this time. I hope that everyone will be able to gain quite a bit after entering the Bamboo Sea world. The Earth Soul Realm used this as an opening speech. After everyone's attention was attracted, he continued, however, the Bamboo Sea world is extremely dangerous. Over the years, many of our Fong clan's heroes have lost their lives. Therefore, I would like to advise everyone not to be greedy after entering. Quit while you're ahead. The Earth Soul Realm extended 2 fingers and said, this time, entering the world is mainly divided into 2 stages. The first stage is very dangerous. Everyone will be able to gain some benefits and accumulate some points, which can be exchanged for some resources that you need. If anyone is willing to quit, then you can leave with your gains without any responsibility. As for the second stage, you will need to assist my Fong clan in completing the mission. Once you succeed, you will be able to obtain generous rewards. Of course, the danger will also be greater. This is because it is an unknown place, a place that we have never explored before. The surroundings were completely silent. Everyone was listening to the Earth Soul Realm. He continued, I guarantee on the Fong clan's reputation that this trip to the Bamboo Sea world will only be open to human Soul Realm cultivators. It will be absolutely fair. Cheers could be heard in the quiet square. All right, let's not waste any more time. This time, we have spent quite a bit of resources to open up a temporary passage. You can enter in groups. A simple and unadorned jade token appeared in this Earth Soul Realm expert's hand. He lightly shook his hand and the jade token fell to the ground, turning into a wide and large door. The door could allow 12 people to pass through at once. Chapter 3904. Just as the passage opened, outside the square, several figures flew into the air. They were not in a hurry to enter the Bamboo Sea world, but they were from the Fong clan to prevent others from taking advantage of this loophole. This was because everyone who entered this time had to go through a strict and detailed registration process to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the situation. The first team moved. It was the leftmost team, but Zichun did not see their leader, or rather, he did not know who they worked for. It's my big brother, Fong Wudao's people, Fong Wulian explained. He's the first, Fong Wuling is the second, and we're the third to enter. How is it? My position in the clan is good, right? Zichun did not reply, but asked, where are they? They've already gone in to scout ahead. Fong Wulian said lightly, after all, this trip to the Bamboo Sea world is the most important to them. We're just going there to try our luck and see the world. Zichun understood Fong Wulian's concern, but he did not point it out. Seeing the 2 teams enter the passage, Fong Wulian immediately shouted excitedly, it's our turn. Everyone, follow me. The people under him started to move. Fong Wulian walked in front, waving his hands back and forth, looking very proud. Shan Kuei followed closely behind. Zichun's position was slightly behind, and Lan Guming and the other 2 had already caught up. Then, it was the people following Fong Wulian. In the sky, there were several powerful existences staring coldly at the entrance. On one hand, they were guarding against unruly people. At the same time, after a team had all entered, there would be a person in charge of forming seals. During this time, a ray of light would fall into the entrance. There were many people outside who wanted to join in the fun. When they saw that the Fong clan had actually made a temporary entrance, many of them revealed regretful expressions. The Fong clan's actions completely destroyed the hopes of those who wanted to know where the entrance to the Bamboo Sea world was. The teams entered one after another in an orderly manner. As the third person to enter, Zichun naturally had the advantage of time. When they appeared, Zichun first saw a cliff. The cliff was filled with smoke, and the bottom could not be seen. At this moment, Zichun and his team were right next to the cliff. Zichun turned around. Behind him was a field of green grass that extended into the distance. At the end of his line of sight was a bamboo forest. This is the Bamboo Sea world? Zichun asked. That's right, it's here. Fong Wulian pointed ahead and said, if I'm not wrong, the opportunity that everyone wants is in that bamboo forest. What's under the cliff behind us? Zichun asked again. Fong Wulian pondered for a moment before saying, it's the end. The end? Zichun was slightly stunned. Fong Wulian nodded. The end of the bamboo sea world, but it can also be said to be the beginning. Of course, Zichun understood this explanation. He didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he walked forward at a slow pace. Many people overtook Zichun, but considering what Fong Wulian had said previously, they deliberately slowed down. However, when they looked back at Zichun from time to time, their eyes would be filled with emotions. The opportunity is right ahead. How do you plan on arranging them? Fong Wulian asked. Zichun revealed an inexplicable smile. He waved his hand and said, "You're free to move about." The human soul realm cultivators walking in front were stunned when they heard that. They looked at Zichun in disbelief. Even Fong Wulian was slightly taken aback. Shan Kuei wanted to ask Zichun if he had said something wrong. As the leader, are you sure you don't command everyone to act in unison? Zichun said again, "You're free to move about. Go and find your opportunity." Zichun repeated himself before everyone dispersed. However, many people sneered at Zichun as they left. Clearly, they concluded that it was because Zichun didn't have the guts to command them. Looking at the departing crowd, Fong Wulian asked in puzzlement, "Why? No matter how strong you are, you can't compare to a team, right?" Zichun said, "Didn't your family clan say that there are opportunities in the first stage? The danger is relatively low. Let them try their luck." That makes sense. Fong Wulian nodded with a smile. Zichun continued walking unhurriedly as he looked ahead. At that moment, some of the faster ones had already entered the bamboo forest, but soon, light appeared in the bamboo forest. Following that, there were energy fluctuations from a battle. They must have encountered a bamboo monster, a mutated plant. It's a little difficult to deal with, but once it's killed, its main body can be used to refine weapons. It can be considered one of the opportunities here. Fong Wulian, who was walking beside Zichun, explained. At that moment, only the 6 of them were still walking unhurriedly in the grassland. The others had entered the bamboo forest. The fluctuations from the battle kept spreading. From the looks of it, there were quite a number of bamboo monsters inside. "Why don't you tell me what else is here?" Zichun said indifferently. Fong Wulian looked around and said expressionlessly, "I don't know. I really don't know." Zichun didn't ask any more questions. However, Xiaoer said unhappily, "Who would believe you? You don't know? Who are you trying to fool?" "I say, little grandaunt, I really don't know. This is my Lan family's secret. This is my first time here. How could I know?" Fong Wulian said with a sad face. Lan Guming and Shanya both looked at Fong Wulian with strange expressions. His reaction was a little unreasonable. It didn't match his usual playboy personality. Zichun raised his hand and said with a smile, "It's better that you don't know. This is because it's more challenging. Who knows, we might be able to get an unexpected reward here." After saying that, Zichun increased his speed. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he headed straight for the bamboo forest. He understood Fong Wulian's meaning, so he didn't want to appear too happy. As more and more teams entered the bamboo sea world, the spectators outside saw images appear in the sky above the square. The images showed everyone who had just entered the bamboo sea world. Just like the Sacred Mountains test, everyone's various performances were shown on the images. Outside the square, there were cries of surprise. Many people's faces were filled with amazement. The person who spoke earlier said with a smile, "After many years of exploration, we can only monitor a part of the bamboo sea's periphery. We've made a fool of ourselves." Although he said it was a fool, the pride on this Earth soul's face couldn't be concealed. This was the first time the bamboo sea world appeared before the eyes of the world. After seeing the bamboo sea world's appearance, many of the spectators became excited. During this period, many people began to use secret techniques to try to contact the people who had entered. Clearly, they wanted to find the coordinates of the bamboo sea world. Chapter 3905. As they entered the bamboo forest, the surrounding bamboos emitted faint soul power fluctuations. It was obvious that they were extremely good items. Even the outermost emerald bamboos can be refined into weapons. It's just that the grade is slightly lower. People like you and I naturally wouldn't be interested in them, but for those of lower cultivation, they are truly good items. After entering the bamboo forest, Fang Wulian took the initiative to introduce them to Zichen. Zichen extended his hand and lightly tapped the bamboo with his finger. The bamboo began to vibrate irregularly, emitting a buzzing sound. He nodded his head and said, "It's indeed not bad." Fang Wulian felt his eyelids tremble a little. This was because at the place where Zichen's finger tapped, small cracks had clearly appeared on the bamboo. It was only a light tap, but it actually had such power. If he used a little more force, wouldn't it directly break? Just how strong was his physical body? At this moment, a ray of light appeared in front of them. A strange creature about 3 meters tall appeared. Its entire body was dark green. It had hands and feet, but they were all made of bamboo. Its head was an irregular square shape. It was a bamboo monster that was naturally born here. As soon as it appeared, it began to attack the group. It had no intelligence and no method of attack. A sharp whistle suddenly sounded. A blue light flew out in front of Lan Guming. Before the bamboo monster's attack arrived, it directly pierced through its body. In the next moment, the bamboo monster's body collapsed, and a green bamboo joint fell to the ground. Bamboo monsters, also known as bamboo monsters, have 9 grades. This type of monster is considered the weakest type. Seeing the bamboo joint on the ground, Fang Wulian continued, "However, its degree of hardness is several grades higher than these emerald bamboos. Right now, even if it's the lowest grade, it can still be considered an opportunity here." Lan Guming walked forward and bent down to pick up the bamboo joint. At this moment, a brilliant light circulated in front of her. A jade tablet that seemed to be carved from emerald bamboos appeared. At this moment, the number 1 appeared on the jade tablet. Fang Wulian continued, "These are points. When you reach the depths, you can use them to exchange for resources." Lan Guming took the jade tablet, turned around, and handed the bamboo in her hand to Zichen. Zichen took it and looked at it a few times, then tried to pinch it. Indeed, the quality was much better than the bamboo around them. These things might be useless to him, but they were extremely important to the development of a power. And this was only the periphery of the bamboo sea world. If there was such a fortuitous encounter, then what would there be in the depths? No wonder the Fang clan had a foundation comparable to the sacred mountain. They continued to move forward, and the bamboo monsters appeared one by one. Shiju and Shanya made their moves one after another. When they obtained the bamboo knots, they also obtained the corresponding jade bamboo tokens. However, each person could only obtain 1 jade token. Zichen still didn't make a move, and neither did Fang Wulian. All the bamboo monsters in front of him that tried to attack him were all killed by Shan Kuei. Zichen looked up at the sky. It was blue without any clouds, so he couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. However, since Fang Wulian couldn't say anything, it was clear that there was something wrong with this place. Zichen felt quite confused. Why did the Fang clan want to open up this bamboo sea world? Weren't they worried that other powers would be jealous and attack the Fang clan? The bamboo ahead swayed as a powerful aura swept out, and an even larger bamboo monster appeared. "This is a 2-jointed monster." Fang Wulian's voice sounded out, as if he was the most suitable explanation. The underworld ghost, who had been resting on Zichen's shoulder, suddenly flew forwards. Its body was extremely small, but it was incredibly strong. Its small claws slammed into the bamboo monster's head, and following a loud explosion, the 2-jointed monster's body was shattered, leaving behind a 2-jointed bamboo stick. The underworld ghost picked it up and brought back a jade token with the number 2 on it. Zichen took it, while the underworld ghost turned and entered the depths of the bamboo sea world. Evidently, it felt that this was quite interesting. There were continuous explosions in front of them. The underworld ghost must be fighting with the bamboo monsters. When the underworld ghost picked up the bamboo stick, the number on the jade token would also increase. The deeper they went, the stronger the bamboo monsters they would encounter. Monsters with 3 legs, 4 legs, and 5 legs. As their ranks increased, the quality of the bamboo sticks they would encounter would also increase. So far, Zichen had yet to make a move. The underworld ghost was the one fighting because it liked to fight and would take the initiative to attack. Therefore, among the group, Zichen had contributed the most, more than 100 points. "Your pet is nice. How about selling it to me? I'll give you a set of armor." Fang Wulian was very interested as he watched the underworld ghost fight. The one that I blew up last time? Zichen asked casually. Fang Wulian smiled and didn't mention it again. There's a chance but no danger. Fang Wulian, the Fang family is really generous this time. Shijio put away her soul weapon and darted a look at Fang Wulian. Young lady, you're right. Fang Wulian said proudly. The Fang family doesn't have much, but we have a lot of money and resources. Let's not talk about other things first. Just the bamboo sticks you've obtained this time will sell for a good price when you bring them back. He patted his chest and said, This is called a foundation, the foundation of the Fang family. At this moment, many people who were watching the battle were envious. Because of their previous concerns, many people thought that there must be a trap this time. Who would have thought that it would turn out like this? None of the human soul realm warriors who entered had their lives threatened. Their harvest had already reached a point where even human soul realm warriors would be envious. Many people were annoyed. If they had entered in the beginning, they would have also obtained such a huge harvest. There was almost no danger along the way. It was only when they encountered the seven legs that they became slightly more troublesome. However, when they worked together, they were able to kill the seven legs quickly and reap the rewards. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, the Fang family was doing a good deed this time. The human soul realm warriors who entered had obtained so many benefits that it made people envious. Finally, the 9-segment bamboo left behind by the 9-segment monster was even more dazzling. Even if one did not deliberately forge it, it was already a soul weapon by itself. Where should one go to find such a place of opportunity? Not only that, but when they were moving forward, they could also obtain some additional contribution points. These contribution points could also be exchanged for various resources. Finally, they reached the end of the bamboo forest. The first part of the opportunity was the bamboo sticks. They could sell them or leave them for the family to use. They were all excellent things. The second part of the opportunity was to exchange for the contribution points they obtained along the way. Chapter 3906. The place where they could exchange for contribution points was at the end of the bamboo forest, right in front of everyone. There were huge green bamboos that were comparable to ancient trees, and in front of each green bamboo, there was a green bamboo spirit that floated and danced around the green bamboo. The opportunity to exchange for contribution points was right in front of them, but no one immediately went over. After arriving at the end of the bamboo forest, almost everyone looked up at the sky. There were two people standing in the air, a man and a woman. More than 90% of the human soul experts who had come here knew the two of them. Even those who did not know them quickly guessed their identities from the changes in the expressions of the surrounding people. They were Fang Wudao and Fang Wuling, who had come in early. Fang Wudao was wearing the magic robe unique to the Fang family, and it shone brightly. He, who was already extraordinarily handsome, stood with his hands behind his back as he looked at the people who had walked to the end. Fang Wuling stood beside him, her spirit robe fluttering in the wind. Her beautiful face was exceptionally eye-catching. Almost subconsciously, all the human soul experts who came here stopped and looked at the sky in silence. The two of them must have a reason for doing this. Perhaps they had something to say. Sure enough, after a while, Fang Wudao moved. He first cupped his fists at everyone, and then said, "Everyone, if you're just here to join in the fun, then you can leave. The following journey will be extremely dangerous, and you may even lose your life." He pointed at the other end of the sky, and a ray of light shot out from his fingertip. The space there began to distort, and a door of light that was much smaller than when they entered appeared. This is the passage to leave. After exchanging for your contribution points, you can leave if you want to leave. Fang Wudao said again, "I repeat, the depths are extremely dangerous. If you're not prepared, then please leave." The surroundings were silent, and no one spoke. Before coming here, the Fang clan's Earth Soul Realm expert had reminded them that if they left now, they wouldn't have to bear any consequences and could take away all the things they had obtained. It was time for everyone to make a choice. Shiju looked at the sky, and then at Zichen, with obvious doubt and inquiry in her eyes. Was the Fang family really that good? One had to know that they had gained a lot this time, and their gains were almost enough to make a family rise. This was their gain, but the Fang family's loss. Zichen shook his head, indicating that he did not know. May I ask, young Master Fong, other than the dangers in the depths, are there also opportunities? At this moment, a voice sounded from the crowd. Fong Wudao replied, "Of course there will be opportunities, even more than what you have encountered before. But I still stand by what I said before. Compared to opportunities, the danger is actually greater. I don't recommend that you all follow in. For those who are weaker, retreating now is actually the right choice." "Do you intend to force us to leave?" Another voice came from another direction. Fong Wudao smiled and said, "Of course not. It's up to you whether to advance or retreat. I'm just here to remind everyone out of goodwill. Once you enter the depths, life and death are up to fate." Fong Wudao no longer tried to persuade them. Instead, he looked at his own team and said, "Quickly exchange for some items and follow me deeper." "Yes." A loud and clear voice came from below. Then, those people began to move. Fong Wudao did not suppress his voice, so everyone heard it clearly. Even the people in the outside world heard it through the square. The word items was particularly attractive. Many people were curious as to what kind of items it was. Everyone began to exchange, but there were too many people here. There were only so many exchange points, so they had to line up. Zichun and the others were the latest to arrive, so they were naturally at the back of the line. He did not use his authority as the leader to compete with the others. Instead, he slowly waited. Fong Wudao and Fong Wuling had already landed. They began to instruct their own people to exchange in an orderly manner. During this time, the two of them used some kind of secret technique, and the number of little fairies on their side clearly increased. In other places, the leaders were also performing their roles. They arranged for everyone to exchange. Compared to everyone else, Zichun was too irresponsible. Of course, from another point of view, it was also because Zichun, as the leader, could not control his subordinates. Fong Wuling, the third direct descendant of the Fong clan to enter, did not rush Zichun. Like Zichun, he occasionally scanned the crowd. However, unlike Zichun, he often paid attention to some outstanding female cultivators. His gaze was very unscrupulous as he sized up the other party's figure. This was how a spoiled brat should look like. Cheers would occasionally erupt from the front, but there were also voices of doubt. Zichun finally retracted his gaze. He asked, "What's with the items?" Fong Wuling pointed to the depths and said, "There will be danger inside. If you exchange for some items here, there will be a certain chance of reducing the corresponding danger." Zichun saw that after someone finished exchanging, he did not immediately leave. Instead, he walked to the other side. Interesting. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. After waiting patiently, it was finally their turn. Zichun walked forward. When he reached the front, the bamboo fairies flew forward and a wave of soul power appeared. This wave of soul power entered Zichun's sea of consciousness. In the next moment, it turned into pictures. Under each picture, there was a note. Detoxification fruit, able to detoxify bamboo poison, 5 contribution points. Clear heart and clear eyes liquid, able to break camouflage, 10 contribution points. Exploding fruit, 20 contribution points. Invisible leaf, 30 contribution points. Aside from the various items, there were also many soul weapons and defensive armors. There were so many that even Zichun, who had traveled extensively, was dazzled and moved. There was even a full set of armor on the last page. However, the cost was also very high, requiring 10,000 contribution points. Along the way, Zichun had only obtained a bit more than 1,000 contribution points. You even have a full set of armor. Your Fong clan is truly rich. Zichun couldn't help but sigh. If someone knew about this in advance, as long as they stayed in the bamboo forest and fought, they would be able to exchange for as many armors as there were here. No wonder so many people showed regretful expressions before. So that's the reason. These armors are not from the Fong clan, but from the Bamboo Sea world. Have you forgotten that the reason why my Fong clan was able to prosper was all because of the Bamboo Sea world? Fong Wuling replied. Zichun's expression changed. This is interesting. It's a pity that I can't turn back. Otherwise, Zichun would really want to get 10,000 contribution points to see what the armors here are like. Are they made of bamboo? Soul weapons and armors are not very useful here. You should exchange for as many items as you can, the more the better. They will be very useful in the depths. Chapter 3907. Zichen exchanged all of the contribution points in the jade token for items. If his senses were not wrong, there might be great danger ahead. The three women also followed Zichen's instructions and exchanged enough fruit items. After the exchange, Zichen scanned the surroundings and found that there were many people waiting for him. If Zichen's memory was not wrong, those people waiting were all from his team. They, who were free to move, now chose to wait. He glanced at Feng Wulian beside him and said with a smile, "I didn't expect these elites you found to be so loyal to you." Feng Wulian understood this time. This was not a compliment, but a mocking one. However, he did not become angry and instead asked, "What do you plan to do?" "Let's go in and take a look first." Zichen walked forward. He had promised Feng Wulian, so he could not leave. The passage in the sky was still there, but so far, no one had left. Thinking about it, how many years would it take for such an opportunity to appear? Who would want to miss it? If he was not mistaken, many of these people came from other families, and they all had ulterior motives. No one would leave before seeing the greatest secret of the Bamboo Sea world. In fact, Zichen still had a doubt in his heart. Could the passage in the sky really leave? Second young master, what should we do now? Wang Zhe, who Zichen had seen before, walked over with a dozen people behind him. Feng Wulian looked at Zichen and said, "Zichen is the leader. You should ask him." Apart from Wang Zhe, there were nearly 100 people standing there, not moving. Each of the Feng family's direct descendants could bring 200 people in. At this moment, those who did not wait were all because of Zichen's words. After exchanging for resources, they directly entered. Not only did they not put Zichen in their eyes, but they also did not put Feng Wulian in their eyes. However, in Zichen's eyes, these people were the most adorable. Wang Zhe looked at Zichen with an unfriendly gaze. Zichen waved his hand and said, "You can do whatever you want." "What did you say?" Wang Zhe's eyes turned cold. "Move freely and act according to the circumstances. Try to get as many resources as you can so that you won't have come here in vain," Zichen said again, his voice still calm. "Did second young master ask you to come here so that you can move freely? Are you courting death?" Wang Zhe said indifferently, "You don't care about second young master's life and death, but we still have to protect second young master. We won't let him be threatened." Wang Zhe turned around and looked at the crowd in the distance. "Don't you agree?" "Yes." A loud and clear voice sounded. It was obvious that there were many supporters. Zichen was amused. This was quite interesting. Wang Zhe turned around and cupped his fists at Feng Wulian. "Second young master, from now on, we will be responsible for your safety. Don't worry, I won't compete with this guy for the position of leader, and I won't accept his reward. The only reason we're here is because second young master gave us a chance. We can't be ungrateful people. We swear to protect second young master with our lives. We won't be ungrateful people." The voices sounded again, loud and clear. Many people in the distance looked over. They were already discussing whether to enter the depths, but this side was still expressing their loyalty. Hearing Wang Zhe's words, Feng Wulian was very emotional and moved. He immediately went up and patted Wang Zhe's shoulder, saying, "Wang Zhe, you're so considerate. Everyone is considerate too. Don't worry, no matter what the final result is, I won't mistreat anyone. From now on, as long as I, Feng Wulian, eat, everyone will drink." While the people here were impassioned, on the other side, Feng Wulian had already led his people into the depths. Feng Wulian also left, but before she left, she glanced at Feng Wulian with a strange expression. Coincidentally, her casual glance was seen by Zichen. You still have the face to stay here. If I were you, I would have died of shame." After expressing his loyalty, Wang Zhe looked at Zichen and snorted coldly. Zichen picked his ear and said obscenely, "You're not going to fight with me for the reward of the leader, so why can't I stay here? You guys do the work, and I take the final reward. Isn't that better?" "You." Wang Zhe was rebuked and trembled with anger. "You're really shameless. Cut the crap. I let you move freely, but you don't want to. Don't blame me for giving the order." Zichen's expression suddenly became serious. He glanced at the crowd and said indifferently, "Everyone in the team, go in immediately. With you loyal cannon fodder in the front line, I believe your second young master will be safe." As soon as he said that, of course, the crowd was angered again. Immediately, a few people exploded, but they didn't go against Zichen. Instead, they left directly. Obviously, they were going to move freely. No one was willing to be cannon fodder. But it wasn't absolute. Wang Zhe didn't leave, and many others didn't either. So they could only listen to Zichen's orders and walk in front. The group walked past the exchange area. After about a few miles, they saw a bamboo forest. This time, the bamboo forest had no end. Outside the bamboo forest, there was a layer of white fog. It was like a dense concentration of spiritual energy, or some kind of miasma. Everyone took out their weapons. Fang Wulian's magic robe began to emit light. Shan Kuei had another set of armor on his body. He was fully armed at this moment. Shanya and Lan Gumeng both took out their weapons. Yu Gui stood on Zichen's shoulder and looked forward vigilantly. Shiju was the closest to Zichen. Because she was the weakest, she needed protection. The group of people entered the white fog. In the square outside the Fang family, after everyone stepped into the white fog, the image in the sky became blank. The Earth's soul realm expert from before rose into the air and said with shame, "Everyone, the image can only be seen here. We can't monitor the deeper areas yet." Many people had regretful looks on their faces, and some people even had a bad feeling in their hearts. They thought that they could keep watching their performance. This way, not only could they see the Fang family's secret, but they could also know everyone's situation. They didn't expect it to turn out like this. For a time, all kinds of discussions sounded. In the crowd, old Tang, who had appeared out of nowhere, saw the disappearing image and muttered, "Is the hidden danger in the deeper areas?" After entering the white fog, Zichen clearly felt that Fang Wulian, who was beside him, heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, he had something to say but didn't say it clearly. Zichen understood some of it and didn't let the others ask. "Tell me what happened this time," Zichen asked. Chapter 3908. Zichen stopped moving forward and looked at Fang Wulian in surprise. Give up this world? After coming to the periphery of this world, everyone's harvest was enough to strengthen a family. Naturally, there were more and better resources in the depths. It could be said that the Fang family was able to rise because they relied on this world to achieve their current status. Why give up? Even Shiju was very surprised. Without this world, the first-rate Fang family would soon become a second-rate family. At this moment, there were only 6 people here, so Fang Wulian did not have any scruples. This is the information that I paid a huge price to obtain. It shouldn't be wrong. He looked forward and said faintly, because some uncontrollable factors have appeared in this world. It seems that some kind of mutation has occurred and it has become very dangerous. As if to verify Fang Wulian's words, a scream suddenly sounded. There were no casualties along the way, but just as they reached here, there were deaths. Following that, screams continuously sounded. It's the bamboo monsters. Retreat, retreat. Someone shouted loudly and began to retreat. However, the thick fog around them also began to roll and become thicker and sticky, greatly affecting everyone's vision. Even Zichen could only see within a range of 10 feet. Moreover, within this range, the thick fog seemed to be moving according to a certain trajectory. Wang Zhe led his men to the back. After seeing Fang Wulian, he shouted, "Protect second young master." Everyone protected Fang Wulian. However, Shan Kuei, who was at the side, was clearly more vigilant against these people. As Fang Wulian's most loyal guard, he was vigilant against Zichen, let alone the others. Zichen's expression did not change much. He was still as calm as before. Screams continued to rise and fall. Ever since they appeared, they had not stopped. As the leader, why don't you go ahead and take a look? Are you going to let them die here? Wang Zhe looked back at Zichen and criticized him in dissatisfaction. Leader? Now you know that I'm the leader? Sorry, it's too late. After moving freely, you are responsible for your own life and death. Zichen responded indifferently, moreover, if more people die, Maybe the bamboo monsters will be merciful and not attack us. Wang Zhe gritted his teeth in hatred. The people beside him were also coldly staring at Zichun. This leader was simply too shameless. Zichun didn't care about this at all. He continued to follow behind, acting like an incompetent leader. From the beginning to the end, Fang Wulian did not say a word. Obviously, he approved of all of Zichun's decisions and was very supportive of them. Previously, Zichun had treated their expressions of sincerity as a joke, but Fang Wulian had treated it as a joke as well. The only difference was that he had cooperated with these monkeys to act out a touching scene. After entering the white fog, Fang Wuling and Fang Wudao's teams had already merged together. The two of them were walking at the back, while the people in the team were scouting ahead until they heard screams. Even though they were all elites, there were still casualties in an instant. Use the heart-purifying, eye-brightening liquid. However, unlike the panic of the other teams, Fang Wuling rationally commanded from the back. The people at the front all took out the spirit liquid that they had exchanged for earlier and swallowed it. The white fog in their vision gradually disappeared until everyone's vision was restored. One drop can only last for 2 hours. Everyone, try to move faster. Fang Wuling continued. After their vision was restored, everyone's speed was clearly much faster. However, as they moved forward, the casualties continued to increase. Fang Wuling looked ahead. The ones that had killed her subordinates were the green bamboos. After this mutation, the originally gentle green bamboos had become even more violent and powerful for some unknown reason. She carefully looked ahead and discovered that once the nearby bamboo had succeeded, they would become quiet and no longer attack anyone who passed by. After observing for a while, Fang Wuling said, "It seems like it is as that person said. They are thirsting for blood. Once they have devoured enough, they will stop and return to their original gentle state." Fang Wudao slowly nodded and said, "Perhaps he can really resolve the crisis of the bamboo sea this time. How is the situation over there?" Fang Wuling said, "Someone is watching. There shouldn't be any mistakes. All these years, he's been pretending to be crazy, and we've always turned a blind eye to him. But recently, he's been getting more and more restless. Now, he's even got the guts to think about the identity of the successor. Don't even think about leaving here alive. Just a bastard. Big brother, don't worry about him." Fang Wuling said indifferently, "Tell people to be careful. From the information I have gathered, that Zichun beside him is indeed very strong and cannot be underestimated. Yes, I will tell people to be careful. However, don't worry too much. After all, this time, we do not plan on letting an outsider leave alive." Just as all the teams were slowly moving forward, a black-robed person came from behind. In this bamboo forest that had devoured many lives, he was strolling leisurely as if he was walking in his own garden. Along the way, not a single bamboo attacked him. The bamboo monsters that could previously transform seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep and became abnormally quiet. "Sleeping so quickly. It seems that you in the depths are about to change." The black-robed person smiled faintly. "With you people using your lives to pave the way, the people behind will be able to safely reach the end. The effect of this heart-cleansing and eye-brightening liquid is really not bad. If I had known earlier, I would have exchanged for more." After swallowing a drop of the heart-cleansing and eye-brightening liquid, Zichun's vision recovered. The surrounding white fog also seemed to have slowed down because of this. He saw that the bamboo in front of him had turned into bamboo monsters and were attacking the human soul realm cultivators at the front. The light of their soul weapons flashed as they fought back and killed one bamboo monster after another. After the bamboo monsters died, there would be bamboo joints left behind, which could be considered an opportunity. However, after the human soul realm cultivators died, they would also be eaten by the nearby bamboo monsters. Until now, Zichun still had not made a move, but he was walking closer to Fang Wulian. Long Guming, Shanya, and Shan Kuei were on the outside while Shiju, Zichun, and Fang Wulian were in the middle. During this time, the two of them stood on Zichun's left and right. It was not to protect Zichun, but to allow Zichun to rescue them in time if danger occurred. As for Wangzhe's people, they were leading the way. During this time, in order to ensure Fang Wulian's safety, Wangzhe would occasionally turn his head and look around vigilantly. Most of the time, He would also cast a cold glance at Zichun. After walking like this for several hours, the casualties in the team were getting higher and higher. If this continued, perhaps all of them would die here. Suddenly, Wang Zhi stopped walking. As he turned around, his eyes became extremely cold.